Three, two, one. Hello, 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 and welcome again to another edition of Sonic Hosts, Coast to Coasts. I am one of your hosts, one of your many hosts, Radrey. I am joined, as always, by the illustrious Malzilla.
We are collecting a variety of co-hosts. We may have to promote some of them until we are the League of Sonic Hosts. The League.
Yeah, the royal hosts. For our listeners who don't live in Japan, I mean, I think most of our listeners are in the U.S. There is a chain restaurant in Japan that's named Royal Host. I don't know. I always thought that was really funny. And I mean, what's also kind of funny, a bit of a digression here, already digressing. The word host kind of has a very interesting association in Japan, opposed to how it is in, the United States. You know what that is, yes?
Yes. It's traditionally, like in an American restaurant, your host is usually the person, kind of your maitre d'-esque. They greet you at the door, they lead you to the table, and then they kind of pass you off to your server. Japanese hosts, I'm assuming this is a host club joke, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so basically Yes, go on.
No, can you explain it? Or what's the best way to explain this to somebody who's never heard of a host club before?
Well, basically, I never actually watched the anime because it wasn't really my thing.
You didn't really need to.
But yeah, but the idea is that, a host club, at least in more pop culture portrayals, was kind of a cafe where, women, usually kind of late 20s, early 30s, maybe a little older, would go and they'd spend money to basically be served by and kind of pampered and complimented by young men.
Yes. Very, very, in Japanese, the word you'd use is charai, young men. Very, I don't know if I would describe them as dapper, but like they have very like wild hairstyles, and so what I'm trying to get at with this long explanation, and thank you, Malzil, for that explanation. You are now being joined by us, our royal hosts. So now you have your context.
If anyone wants to draw fan art of us, our characters in suits, hosting you, go for it. Show us. We'll use it as a thumbnail.
Yeah, we'd love that. So today we are here to do the episodes. We got actually 4 episodes, but I wanted to condense the Blast from the Past episode down into 1 because it is pretty much 1. We're gonna do, let's see, Blast from the Past. Well, I guess it's actually more. It's a lot today.
It's technically 5.
Yeah.
I mean, you got Blast from the Past 1 and 2, which was the show's only 2-part episode, and then we have the first of the 2 double episodes, which is basically it's something more you see traditionally in comedic shows, where instead of one 25-minute episode, you have kind of 2 12-minute sketches. Sonic Boom was pretty much the extent of what they did. So, again, this is more of, and we'll get into those episodes, and then we'll finish up Dulcy. So technically, it's 4 episodes, but really it's kind of like 5.
Yes. And we have things to say. We have thoughts. So
we have lots of thoughts.
So without further ado, let's jump on in to our first episode. So Blast from the Past, parts 1 and 2, directed by Ron Myrick, written by Ben Hurst. So both episodes are written by him. Let's begin. So the episode kicks off in Robotropolis, where Sonic and Sally lead with 2 very tall and beefy freedom fighters, like in the ranks. Sally then, with like some device, shoots like a suction cup projectile rope across like a ravine for these two like hunky furry dudes to like get to the other side.
Let's call them what they are. The red shirts. They're
Yes,
free.
yeah.
They're red shirt freedom fighters. They're
I
not wearing red, but they're basically red shirts.
Yeah, that's what I was going to call them. But like these guys, man, these guys are huge. Like, where did these guys
Well,
even
it's
come from?
like one's a horse and the other's a bear. So
Yeah,
it's
they're
like, yeah,
big.
these are not your typical woodland critters that you
No,
would, that would come out of a little capsule that Sonic would explode.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure how much continuity this is, but it's like, because as you'll see, the continuity in the show is a mess. But the funny thing about this is like, wait, were these the ones that he saved in the previous episode? Or could I like apologize for the show and say, oh no, these are the ones that he saved from being roboticized in like, I think a previous one? I don't know.
I think this is the case of like they've shown it at various times. Random freedom fighter villagers, like not whole supposedly now, especially in the Archie comics, especially kind of once Robotnik became Eggman. Like Nahul was you know it was more than a city of 30 people, like Sub Mobius from season one. This was like a village where, pretty much all the refugees from Robotnik's initial coup kind of said, hey, we're gonna basically camp out and, you know, try to get our work, figure out what we're gonna do, and then ultimately, the freedom fighters would be born. Now, of course, Archie did things a little differently and would show that, Sally and Sonic and company were not the first freedom fighters, but eventually just kind of honored their memory. But that's not what we're really talking about. So back to the episode.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Yeah, however, yeah, as soon as they get to the other end, like the lights like short circuit and flare up, and through binoculars, Siri? Yeah, let's just call her Siri. Sally sees that they've been captured. As Sonic races to
Sally,
save them. Yeah,
I was going to say Siri and Nicole, your AI duo.
there you go. Yeah, so as Sonic races to save them, but he's too late, the SWAT bots drag them inside and slam the door shut. After rendezvousing back with Sally and Bunny, Sonic spots something through Sally's binoculars. These two freedom fighters, the big beefy ones, the red shirts, are now roboticized. While Sally reels from the loss, Sonic vows that Robotnik will pay. Cut to back to Knothole. Guilt weighs heavy on a calm Sally. I think she's way too calm. I don't know. I'm not. There's certain things about this show. I'm not sure if this is the animator's fault or if it's the director's fault with some of these like lines. It was just mostly this episode in particular, but I don't know. Maybe just I've been watching it too much, or I'm overseeing things, or what. But
So traditionally, like in animation, and I'm kind of just basing this off of what 90s animation was, and I learned this from all the behind the scenes of Batman the Animated Series, and from everything I read, how Batman Animated Series did it was pretty much how everyone else did it, is that basically the actors would record the dialogue, and then the episode would get animated, and then they would come back to do ADR kind of touch ups. Now maybe they did things a little bit differently, but that's kind of all the stuff that I kind of assumed that they were doing with this, is that well, I didn't really necessarily think that Sally was animated, or just kind of. I thought, if anything, she was kind of beating herself up a little too much. Because on one hand, it's like, this is just kind of part of, like, you're fighting a war. These are a bunch of like teenagers fighting a war, and you know another Archie joke, but Sonic first finally found what it meant for war and yada yada. But it's kind of like missions are gonna go off the rails, and it feels like they've been doing this long enough that this is probably not the first time it's happened. It's probably not going to be the last time. Like again, Cat in episode 1 was dead or roboticized. They never fully, went into it, but yeah, we kind of all know that's where things went.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I guess so. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, sure, there's a lot of in-world explanations. I mean, I guess a lot of this early animation stuff, heck, even like with what is it, Sonic Adventure, they couldn't even see the screen when they were doing their lines. So I guess maybe I can be a little forgiving for this. I guess I don't know. This is another thing too. I mean, this is a '90s show, and this isn't like in Blu-ray mastered edition. I'm not paying attention to every tiny little detail because this is like on a really small screen, and because TVs back then they had like these, this big distortion, and it's amazing going from today watching Blu-ray movies and then watching these old VHS tapes. I'm like, God damn, I watched this? I put up with all this fuzziness and all this distortion. Like,
There was a charm to it back in the day.
it's sort of like, I don't know if you've ever put on glasses before. It's sort of like, when you're putting on like a pair of glasses and you're like, whoa, I can see everything. That's sort of how it feels sometimes. But like a reverse feeling of that. Like, and say you're taking the glasses off and looking at some of this. But anyway, we digress a lot. Let's continue.
What we do.
Yes. So back in Knothole, guilt weighs heavy on Calm Sally's, I wrote. But Dulcy reassures her that no one can predict Robotnik's every move. I don't know why Dulcy's the voice of reason. That's usually
It is an odd choice.
Sonic agrees but regrets not taking Robotnik down sooner, and that's when Dulcy proposes a wild idea, using the legendary time stones from the floating island to rewrite history.
And sorry, games fans, no Amy and no Knuckles. But references, nonetheless.
Where does the idea of a flying island come from? I know Sonic didn't to create this.
I'm sure, any fiction going back to years, but, that was the kind of whole, it's the funny thing is like, I'm actually going to be referencing Archie a lot because there's a lot of things that happen in these episodes that would kind of later go in and get explained more and expanded on in the Archie comics. But for the longest time, even though we all know Angel Island to be Angel Island, but really up until about midway through the Knuckles run by Penders, or maybe even when Knuckles was backup stories to the main Sonic book, they called it the floating island until they, like the Echidnas and Echinopolis, decided to name it Angel Island after Knuckles' ancestor, named Angel Ka. So,
okay,
it's every time, and even I think that's what Penders is calling his new little publishing group is Angel Island Productions or something like, or not Angel, Floating Island, because Angel Island would be trademarked by Sega.
So I just I googled this, and Google tells me it comes from the ancient Greek mythology, Homer's Odyssey, where Iolia. Help me out here, guys. I'm not a Greek.
Iolia is I know this because it's a character in Saint Seiya. Big fan of mine for anime fans. That's all kind of Greek mythology based. I think he was one of the wind gods.
Yeah, the god of wind. Yes.
Yeah, Iola. He had, Iolos was the island. Also, digression. Christopher Nolan's next big film is going to be an adaptation of the Odyssey. So, it's funny that you should bring that up.
Let's hope it's better than the last couple of movies.
I like Oppenheimer thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like Oppenheimer. Didn't like Tenet. So
Tenet, I was not into that one, but I loved Oppie. But continuing on, so yes, Dulcy wants to take us to use the time stones.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I don't know.
Sonic CD
I want to talk a little bit about Dulcy for a minute. You know, the funny thing about Dulcy, right? She kind of reminds me of like that Simpsons episode, like the Poochie one. I mean, I know people like love referencing the Poochie, the Itchy and Scratchy and Poochie episode, where like you have this character that just gets added on, but like he's the cool hip character that, he's the comic relief. He just shows up and he's really cool, right? I mean, Dulcy is obviously not quote unquote cool. She's more of like kind of goofy and kind of cumbersome and and a second comic relief.
Well, it's kind of interesting because we're going to talk about Antoine later because it's Antoine was for the most part was the comic relief of season one, but his comedic was kind of just more into his his cowardice, his inadequacies. It wasn't super sophisticated, but it was not so much slapstick. Where Dulcie's humor is a little bit more in kind of that Three Stooges slapstick. She's crashing into walls, but it feels one thing where I think Dulcie does a little bit better. Was like, yeah, she's clumsy, and you can get a chuckle out of a laugh or her concussion based sayings, but she does kind of give some decent commentary here and there and kind of some of the oh hey she feels like she's contributing. And I'm gonna say this now, and this has kind of been an ongoing joke I've had with this series now, is I think Dulcie has done more in about 4 episodes of SatAM and of season 2 than Bunny did all of season 1.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And I don't know how to feel about that.
You should be angry. You should feel.
I do feel pretty angry because, like, I mean, I don't dislike Dulcie, but Bunny's awesome, and she gets a little bit to do in these episodes, these next couple episodes, but not like enough.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're right. You're absolutely right. Dulcie, I don't know, like you're saying, yes, she does add something to the story. It's not like Antoine where he's just there to be comic relief and, to get people worried. And, obviously that's not
Annoyed.
really like, yeah, that's not really in, who wants to constantly be annoyed or be worried about a situation and somebody who doesn't add something to it. They're like, when you're like a group, right? You're in a group project for school and there's that one guy who just worries about everything but doesn't do anything. Oh, you want to kick them out bad, but you can't, right? That's sort of how it feels.
I agree.
But I mean, that's one thing about Dulcie is it's like I guess it's like I feel like I'm kind of taken out of the story a little bit when I get Dulcie in this. I mean, don't get me wrong, I like this character because I was thinking about this, like a character like Ari, right, in the previous episode, Game Guy. Would you rather have Dulcie be like Ari, like serious and unforgiving?
I don't think I would.
No, right? I would not want this either. I would rather have Dulcie kind of be fumbling, but also kind of clever and, kind of witty and sometimes, yeah, like saying things like, we're almost there, or what is it? And later in this episode, like she's flying through the sky and she's like, oh, we're almost there. And then like Sally reminds her and he's like, you've said this like 20 times. Like, she goes, hey, yeah, 21, so sue me. And I'm like, they have lawsuits on Mobius, but it's not part of the
course.
Point. Yeah.
Lawyers are and are eternal across all forms of the multiverse. But yeah, Dulcie's got a little sash. Like it's funny, we're talking about Dulcie and she has an episode like, toward the end, but we're talking about her now. We'll talk more soon. But Dulcie will sass back. And that's I think what has made her endearing is where like Antoine will try to sass back, but it never quite hits because they overuse that, his mixed up metaphor joke. But like Dulcie, she sasses back, and I think a lot of that has to do with just Cree Summer being a really damn good voice actress.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna go as far as to say, I remember when, like, as a kid reading Archie and actually seeing Dulcie included in, the Archie book. It really felt like it was like, the show was still going on. It was still continuing. And it felt like I was really a part of something. I really enjoyed it. I don't know. I mean, I don't like, for example, if there was a Dulcy toy, I probably wouldn't buy it. If there's a Dulcy comic book, I'm probably not going to read it, right?
And it's one of those things where it's like Dulcie's interesting, but when like the stories that they used her and Archie were kind of really weird. One about domestic abuse.
Yeah,
Was,
yeah.
that was kind of, it was kind of weird, but it's also one of those things where she kind of just she sticks out because it's again, it's like we're this team of woodland critters, and here's a freaking dragon.
Yeah, I don't know. Dulcie's an interesting character. I don't know. That's one thing I've figured out from rewatching this show, that I do actually quite enjoy the character a lot, despite not really liking the character. More so than Antoine, definitely. Much better comic relief. So, without further ado, let's continue. So, flying through the skies in Dulcie's back, the trio searches for the island for some time, when suddenly Dulcy sees a landing and begins her descent through the clouds. Of course, right into a tree. I guess if you're still drinking from our previous episode, now this is where you start. Because we were having, in a previous episode, if you missed it, you're welcome to go back and re-listen.
Take a shot every time Dulcie gets a concussion.
Yes, because there's a lot.
This would be the first one. Yeah, there's a lot.
So as Sally assumes they've landed on, regular ground, Dulcy blows away the mist, unveiling the floating islands in all its grandeur, complete with an ominous palace, guarded by 2 stone gargoyles that don't look like the ones from Ghostbusters, the Zool. Or I guess they don't look too much like that, but that was the image I got right away. Like, they look like the characters from Ghostbusters, like the 2...
the dogs of Zool. The gatekeeper and the keymaster. These are kind of more griffin shaped.
Yeah,
also, there's no Hydro City or Sandopolis on this floating island, so I know.
Right.
Sad face.
Then Dulcy naps upside down on a tree.
I do want to say something really funny though, is that when they get off, Dulcy, Sonic just kind of hops off. Sally decides to do a flip.
Mm-hmm.
She just flips off Dulcy. No reason. She's just like, I'm going to do a flip. And it's just like, what a drama princess. Just, flipping around.
She just wants to show off the moves,
I guess. Show me your moves.
Yeah. So as you said, as Sally does a very, very, she does this a lot. She did on the sofa in the first season. With the golden one, or not a sofa. What do you call it? Rock sofa. Anyway.
Or the chair, whatever that was.
Yeah. Dulcy, then naps upside down on a tree, leaving Sonic and Sally to venture inside. However, as they approach the threshold, with the 2 gargoyles, the Griffin gargoyles, as stated earlier, Sonic gets the eerie sense that they're being watched. His instincts prove right, and the gargoyles suddenly come to life. Sonic, sensing danger, grabs Sally and runs. One knocks Dulcy from her sleeping tree, but Sonic, quick thinking, lures the creatures off the edge, where they vanish. Dulcy then catches them just in time, and then slips.
You forgot that Sonic and Sally, to dodge the gargoyle griffins, just yeeted themselves off. Well, Sonic yeeted them off the island.
Yes,
and I came to realize that if Sonic cares for you, he's going to yeet you off the island, because that's the same thing, or that's basically what he did to Tom and Maddie in Sonic Movie 1 at the Transamerica building. When he threw him off the building in an attempt to throw a ring for him. It's like, I did not expect this. But I was expecting not to be expected, so it doesn't count.
So you listening, Sega? Give us a Sonic with a yeet button, so you can just throw people off of, mountains and stuff. Like, what is it? Like Mario in Mario 64 when he throws over the penguin,
Exactly.
Or when, what's his face? Is it Tekken? Where he throws over Kirby. or what is it? Is that a meme? I don't know. Doesn't matter.
It's a meme.
Yeah. Yes, I skipped over that part mostly because just for time and
Mhm.
explanation. I mean, the show does a lot of this where it's like they try to get rid of a what is it, a threat, and so there's like some big action sequence, and uh, it's really hard to explain like on in an audio show. So I mean, this is the best way. So feel free to like if I missed something that you want to talk about, feel free to chime in at any time. That goes for you too, listeners. If you want to pause the video and write down a comment, please do. We love your feedback. So, yeah. So yeah, then Dulcy catches them after they've been yeeted off the floating island, and then that sends them crashing into the temple. One thing I want to also point out is that like Sally like scolds Sonic for this idea, like really scolds him hard. I mean, which is funny because she later like adapts this plan. Like she never like or how do I say it? Like sometimes she doesn't even like think things through, but like she goes, "Oh, let's just jump in the air and we'll figure it out from there," right? But I guess you'll see in the later part of the part 2. So inside, they find a mysterious purple door marked with clock hands. The moment they touch it, a blinding light engulfs them, and then suddenly they're lost in like a surreal labyrinth of twisting
The
MCS
MCS.
Yeah, the MCS staircases, the Harry Potter stairs. For those of you who don't know who an MCS is. The shifting angles make Sonic dizzy, but Sally leads them through until they find a glowing white door. And as they opened it, they're sucked inside, plunging into a river of like shimmering purple water that turns into like a waterfall, then turns into a whirlpool, and then they crash onto like a giant chessboard patterned floor. And then the lights flicker out. So yeah, we're getting very Alice in Wonderland-y right now. When they return, a pair of glowing eyes emerges from the darkness, revealing an ancient Wizard of Oz owl-like figure who's
The
like
Guardian of Time,
yeah,
voiced by the Scourge of Cyberspace, Kilo Khan, aka Tim Curry.
yes, yes,
We'll be seeing Tim Curry again very soon.
yeah, voiced by Tim Curry. He kind of looks like Andros from like I don't know, Star Fox a little bit here,
He does.
but
Also, again, Sonic and Owls. It's an interesting theme that's kind of popped its head in over the years.
is this the origin or no?
I think the owls were like originally like in the labyrinth zone.
Were they real? Oh
Like,
yeah, that's right. Huh.
oh,
Anyway, yeah. So this keeper, the floating head, tells them that they must solve a riddle before earning the power of time travel. He says, "I run and run, but cannot leave. I am often watched, yet never seen. Never ever seen. When long, I bring boredom. When short, I bring fear. What am I? Melza, what are they? Or what is this?
time.
Time? It's not Antoine? I think Sonic makes a bunch of jokes.
He probably
He
makes
does.
a bunch of jokes, but at the same time, it's like you're in the temple of time. You're asked a riddle to get the time stones.
Yeah.
It's kind of self-explanatory.
It was pretty
Like the
funny.
first,
It's really funny. Yeah. Go on the first.
Sally's like she's like going through these things. She's trying to think about it, and she gets this really smug look when she's figured it out. You gotta love smug Sally.
Well, I don't know. The funny thing about this, right? Is this like riddle written by like Homer Simpson or something? Come on. Like, I get it. It's a kid's show. I get it. But it's like the time stone has, these time stones they're under lock, by a riddle that guess what the answer to it is? Time, it's like if you go to like a Lego store and it's like, guess what we're gonna build, the castle out of. I don't know. I'm not sure what toy it's gonna be. Anyway,
Time.
so yeah, the keeper confirms the answer, and then vanishing in a flash and presenting them with the legendary time stones. He explains
It
that
just looks like an owl, a face of an owl.
Yeah. What is it with owls and time? Is there like some sort of like analogy, or is there some symbolism?
Oh no, it's just not a gem like look that like a wannabe Chaos Emerald.
Okay. All right. I was trying to figure out why an owl. Why? Whatever. Maybe because an owl with a cuckoo clock, I guess. Anyway, that's a Google rabbit hole for another day. Um, yeah. So anyway, he explains that to travel through time, they must synchronize their thoughts while holding the time stones. Uh, excuse me. Uh, yeah, they must synchronize their thoughts while holding the time zones that now magically appear before them. Time zones. Okay. I must have wrote this when I was really tired. Time stones. Okay, that just kept tripping me up. So Sally tells Sonic to focus on the palace fountain in the year 3224. But mid
1,200 years from now.
Yeah. Wasn't there like in the first episode where they talked about um the year was like 1650 or something? Maybe it's like it's in reverse. Maybe this is like a BC year. I don't know. Whatever. Continuity's out the window with this show, so it's all over the place, and it confuses the hell out of me. But yeah, mid concentration, Sonic, of course, thinking about chili dogs. Yes. So the next thing they know, they land in a city alley. Flying SWAT bots appear, but instead of attacking, they politely greet them and fly away. As Sonic and Sally step into the bustling streets, they marvel at the city's beauty. Sonic smells chili dogs and rushes over, but Sally pulls him into hiding. Moments later, their younger selves arrive. Young Sonic scarfing down a chili dog as young Sally cringes. Present day Sonic just grins. Thoughts on these voice actors? Do you like them?
They're fine. Again, when you're doing a young child versions of these characters, my funny thing was that basically what you have is these for all intents and purposes, you got these fun incarnations of. Well, my funny thing is, it's just like it's the classic. The more things change, the more they stay the same. In that, you know, Sonic and Sally haven't really changed personality wise, and that they're still hanging out. I made in my notes that she's got her little Princess Jasmine outfit, to which I said it was 94. Aladdin was in, you know, so Sally kind of probably they use Jasmine as probably a big influence on her design
Yeah.
personality too.
Yeah, yeah. You can tell that she's matured a lot. So, at least from this
I love
scene.
the you're dumb. No, I'm not. You're dumb. No, not. You're dumb times infinity MC square. It's like, and they were bickering like a married couple when they were 5, and it went all downhill for them afterward. That.
Yep. Yes, it did. Meanwhile, in Sir Charles, that's his name in this episode. Sir Charles Hedgehog's lab. Uncle Chuck works on a device, but is interrupted by a young Sonic and Sally's game of catch. When Sonic bumps into him, knocking an important component to the floor, Chuck sends them outside to play, only to be stunned when their older selves suddenly walk in. Cut to the palace, where we see King Acorn discussing plans with Robotnik, but at this time named Julian. He introduced himself as the man responsible for the victory in the Great War, and to promote him to the Minister of Science. He also orders Julian to dismantle the military immediately, and Julian plays the role of the humble servant here. But the moment the king leaves, he contacts Snively with a chilling command: prepare the palace attack force.
I got a question for you.
Yes.
Do you think Sally ever found out that her dad is a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania?
Oh, you're talking about Tim Curry?
Well, I'm making a Tim Curry jokes, yes, because Tim Curry is the voice of King Acorn. And another fun Archie fact is when they rebooted the continuity, because he was in the Archie comics, he was Max Acorn or Maximilian Acorn, Max to his friends, but that name was created by Penders, and so they couldn't use the name Maximilian. Um, but they ended up using Ian renamed him Nigel in a kind of a homage to Tim Curry's role as Nigel Thornberry from the Nicktoons. So it's kind of, you know, I mean, Nigel sounds better than Tim Acorn, at least in my opinion.
Okay.
Sounds more kingly.
Okay. One thing I wanted to point out, speaking of Penders again, he mentions the Great War. This is discussed way more in Archie. Am I right?
Yeah. So in the Archie comics, the Great War was the war between the Kingdom of Acorn and the Overlanders, which were kind of a part of the remnant human society after the Zorda attack on Earth, then becoming Mobius. But in the comics, basically, Julian Kintobar of the House of Ivo, because that was his name before they, there was a lot of, as Sega did more with the Robotnik family line and changing things, so did Robotnik's names, change get a lot. But so yeah, he originally was Julian, that was his name. He had an older brother named Colin, who was the father of Snively. Snively's real name is Colin Kintobar Jr., but just kept calling Snively for reasons. But yeah, so the war was between the Kingdom of Acorn and the Overlanders. This is where you see a lot of the parents of the main cast kind of they get to be the stars. Sonic's parents, Jules and Bernadette, they fought in the war. It was actually Charles, and before he was knighted, he and Jules were the ones who actually found Robotnik, who was on the run from the Overlanders because he had done some nasty things. They're the ones who found him and brought them to the king, and then he would become an integral part of the royal court. He would become, after he got rid of another kind of warmonger among the there's a lot of Archie lore that I'm going to just kind of try to bypass, but needless to say, eventually Julian became, Warlord Julian, which was kind of a weird name for relatively pacifistic kingdom. But yeah, eventually they kind of got it to the point where it's like, okay, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna, he would eventually become the warlord, and he would kind of, lead the Mobian armies to victory.
Right, right. Well, I mean, the big thing
And
I remember from this is that I believe it was issue 50. I mean, I don't know. I mean, as a
50 went
kid,
into a lot of that,
I thought this was so cool. Back when I was like a kid, and like they had the issue with like Robotnik before, or was I guess you'd call him Julian, before he was like, before the Great War. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, this is like when there was like humans in the area. They're called Overlanders, and they kind of go in a little bit of detail of the Great War. Like they have all these Sega characters in it. Like I think they had like Rystar and a few others. Oh, it was so cool. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people dislike Ken Penders and a lot of the things he says on. I guess he's not on Twitter anymore, or I guess he still is. He's on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever. I totally get it. I totally get why people are upset about the stuff he says and the stuff he does. But for me, it's just sort of like, this was so cool to see as a kid. I mean, I feel like I really felt invested in this story. And this is all just comes from this episode.
Yeah, this is kind of the genesis of that all. And then, of course, as is kind of segue back to the episode, Sonic and Sally start kind of explaining the history to Uncle Chuck. Now, in the comics, this again kind of go back to comics after the war, because Uncle Chuck was such a scientific, brilliant mind. He studied under, he was basically Nate Morgan's prized pupil. Um, because he was such a brilliant, he did all this stuff. Max knighted him, hence why he's Sir Charles, and he was the Minister of Science. So basically, he was basically given a cabinet post for all intents and purposes, as well as, if you know anything about, the aristocracy, Sir is basically the lowest level of the gentry. It's not exactly a title you can pass on unless you become like a landed lord. But again, it basically put old Uncle Chuck kind of in the up and up with the yeah, he was he's a big guy. He's a mover and shaker. And this is where, as Sonic and Sally start explaining what happened and that fact that we get the big lore bomb that it was actually Chuck who invented the roboticizer. It
Yep.
was his, it was a medical device that in the comics he would try to use on Sonic's dad who got hurt, but Robotnik kind of, sabotaged it and it, and even he talks about it in the episode that it was faulty because it would just turn people into robots. There was no free will. This medical device that was supposed to help people heal and live longer just didn't do that, and so he destroyed the plans. But then they found out, those plans were stolen by Robotnik.
Yeah. So going back to what I was saying earlier in previous episodes, all of Robotnik's tech is stolen. I don't.
Though in the Archie, he actually gives Robotnik the plans because it
Does
was
he?
right
I don't remember
after.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
so this was kind of in one of the backstories, and again, just shows why I don't know why I had this ridiculous backstory of. It's one of those things like, why do I know all this stuff? But basically, what happened was again he had built it, he'd used it on Jules because Jules was mortally wounded on a mission, but it just turned Jules into the robot. That's why, Sonic's dad is known as the first and last Robian. So now, during this time, that he had just kind of been, this was kind of a kick to, like, he was just taken back. He was distraught. He had done something. He thought he was saving his brother, who really we really don't know much about Sonic's family in Archie, save for his mom and his dad and his uncle, and they seem to be a pretty close knit trio. So there's that. But it just seemed like I always kind of took on the case that the three of them were all super close and very tight knit, and maybe they didn't know their parents as well as maybe they thought they did, but so he had honestly kind of harmed his own family. And so he kind of resigned his royal post and started Uncle Chuck's chili dog stand, and he had moved out of the house, and Bernadette, Bernie, Sonic's mom, and again, this is when Sonic's just a little infant, kind of tried to plead for him to come home, to be part of the family because it's just kind of the four of them. But Uncle Chuck gets really you know disheveled, and so Bernie goes to investigate what's going on and finds out that Robotnik is using Jules for manual labor and ultimately and she discovers what basically he had done. So Robotnik has Jules throw Bernadette into the uh the roboticizer, so she gets roboticized, and eventually Uncle Chuck finds out. Actually, I take that back. So before all this, after the incident with Sonic's dad, he resigned his post and he actually gave the the roboticizer tech to Robotnik because he had heard that he was hopefully a better scientist than he was because all he did was like cause his family pain. So kind of a interesting little side story. But yeah, in the comics, he gave him the stuff. In the show, Robotnik stole the roboticizer plans.
Okay. Huh. Yeah. So I guess this episode's pretty key in terms of like if you want to enjoy Archie, they kind of work hand in hand. I mean, of course, if you're not
Archie would tweak things naturally, but yeah, this kind of sets up a lot of themes that would be discussed
Man, I
in
can't wait till
more
this show is
detail.
on Blu-ray, so like people can like dissect the hell out of it and like pinpoint all these like little small inconsistencies. There's so many damn ones in this show, but yeah, I mean inconsistencies not only just in terms of artwork, but like storytelling and timing and
Oh,
yeah, there's a lot. Anyway,
but as they start explaining this stuff, Sally and Sonic, the little versions, little Sally, little Sonic, show up and they kind of have to explain who they are. Now, here's another Archie shenanigan that to this day, I kind of wonder how they pulled this off. This is something how I don't know how Can managed to pull off is when they come up with their synonyms. Sonic, calls himself Juice, and Uncle Chuck says he's a distant cousin, and little Sonic thinks he's pretty cool. But Sally introduces herself as Alicia, and little Sally says, "Oh, that's my middle name." And Sally's like, "Oh, what a surprise!" So Sally's name is Sally Alicia Acorn. Now, what Ken would do is Ken took that name Alicia and made it Sally's mom's name.
right.
And so she was Queen Alicia, and of course Ian would use Alicia again for evil Sally as the Mobians of evil. Well, the MOE Beans Scourging Company, as they kind of decided to rebrand themselves the Suppression Squad. Instead of just being Evil Sally, she changed her name to Alicia. So, kind of one of those things where he claims he owns Alicia Acorn, but at the same time is like, since the naming is associated with Sally, especially in SatAM, which we all know Sega owns, I was kind of wondering how that, again, one of those crazy things of copyright of technically how does this actually work out. But yeah, so that's kind of a random little tidbit.
Yeah, I guess if the Sonic brand becomes even further popular, because it's definitely like going up. I mean, it's not like we're not going to stop seeing Sonic
Well,
content.
let's put it this way, Sonic Movie 3 is about $3 million short of being the second highest grossing video game feature film of all time worldwide. So
Yeah, we're
they're
definitely
making
getting
money.
more Sonic, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
So yeah, I mean, I imagine stuff like characters like Sally. They're kind of like on the very bottom of the barrel. I mean, I've said this before, but they're kind of in the the bottom of the barrel in terms of like usage. They're going to use the
Hmm.
top five. Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Shadow, and Amy probably first because they're the safe licensed characters that everyone knows. Because the only people who kind of remember SatAM are like people our age or people who are like big into Sonic the Hedgehog, who are like they wanted like they want to understand who like all the characters are. They dive deep into the lore, but somebody who's just scratching the surface, not really digging deep. Uh, I guess if Sega ever wants to reuse these characters, yeah, that's a can of worms. That's a what is it? One of the chess pieces that's going to be moved on that underwater four-dimensional chessboard that Ken is so cleverly playing. We assume.
We assume.
Yes. So as
Let's get back to the episode.
yes, we digress. We digress. Should have another word for this. Yeah, so Sally, with Nicole's help, reveals to Charles, the shocking truth that Julian, whom he knows as a trusted war hero, is planning to launch a spaceship to destroy Mobotropolis, or I guess not a spaceship. Just the ship itself is called a destroyer. I'm not sure if it's
They
spaceship.
Sally calls it a spaceship, but I think
Does she?
it's more of a
Okay.
but we never see it go to space. So really to me, it feels just more like a battleship.
That's what I was gonna say. But anyway. Yeah, so even worse, they show him that Robotnik Sinister's plan is to enslave the population through the roboticizer. Charles recoils in horror as he recognizes the machine, his invention. He explains that he originally created the roboticizer to extend the lives of the elderly, but after realizing it stripped people of their free will, he destroyed it. Yet somehow, Robotnik has it. Checking his computer, Charles discovers that the roboticizer's files were transferred to the War Ministry, proof that Julian stole them. Sonic reassures his uncle that reminding him that they have a week to stop Robotnik. So, two things here. One, the way this scene is played out is really confusing and weird. Like, if you're not paying attention to all the information that's going on, you would not register any of this. I mean, like, you would see the words War Ministry on, like, a computer. But, like, the way, I don't know, how do you know how to describe this? Do you remember the scene?
I do. Like I remember seeing this scene multiple times on reruns. So it's kind of always one of my personal faves.
Right. Well, I guess the scene that's really weird about it is how like they sort of introduce all this information, but they're doing other things that they're happening. I understand this is like filmmaking 101, but to me, it's just sort of like the way this information is displayed is like it didn't even register with me that all this information is being given out. But anyway,
It's a big lore bomb, and I think they lore bombed a little too much.
yeah. I don't know how to best even describe it. I guess you could have to. Our audience is just gonna have to see this for themselves. So, also a week. I mean, how does Sonic know this? It's just I'm guessing a guesstimation.
So basically, when they to initiate the time travel, they had to sync up their minds, and I think what Sally said, it's like think of this date in this year, but Sonic thinks of a chili dog halfway through, so it tweaks the time because they were supposed to show up a week so they could,
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Okay.
and,
Continue.
but then they realized they showed up the night of, and they're like, oh well, we're screwed now.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we were getting a little ahead of ourselves, but yeah, their conversation is interrupted when young Sonic and young Sally burst into the workshop, wide-eyed at their future selves. Of course, they don't know that they are their future selves. So, thinking quickly, Sally introduces herself as Alicia, her middle name, and Sonic calls himself Juice. Is this an OJ reference? Because he used to use that nickname, right? Juice.
Well, that was his nickname in college in the NFL when he played college football, and when he was in the NFL, it was OJ Juice Simpson, because he was a really fast running back,
Right.
and then he was fast outrunning the cops.
Yeah, well, I mean, this show came out in 94,
94.
and the Simpsons trial was in 95. So,
Uh,
checks out.
checks out, I
I don't know.
guess.
Well, he does always say juice and jam time. I'll just say it's a
Yeah,
reference to always saying that.
yeah,
Maybe. Maybe.
maybe.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, it is really weird seeing OJ references and seeing OJ painted as a good guy, like earlier media. But anyway.
Different times.
Yes, different times. So, yeah, Charles covers for Sonic, calling them cousins. Young Sonic challenges him to a race to the chili dog stand, but their fun ends when they both see SWAT bots flooding the streets. Realizing the danger, Sonic rushes back. Sally asks the date. It's the 13th, and Robotnik's coup is tonight. Later, Sonic, Sally, and Charles take young Sonic and Sally to a safe house to wait for Rosie. Sonic is restless.
Enter Rosie Woodchuck, another character who would show up a lot in the Archie books, and was kind of. I tweeted this out on our social medias, which you should all follow, and of course join our Discord. Rosie was kind of the OG Vanilla the Rabbit before Vanilla was a thing, before she became like the mom character of the Sonic franchise. That was kind of Rosie's role. She in the comics she was Sally's nanny, and her cousin was Sally's governess Julela, which again was a friend of Queen Alicia. So she was kind of one of, for all intents and purposes, she was one of Sally's caretakers and kind of this, she was the royal nanny. So she kind of looked after all the kids. And, that's why, she's here. When she shows up, she's got all the other little freedom fighters. Bunny is naked for reasons, everyone else has got some kind of clothes or shoes except for Bunny, who's just running around, hopping around, butt naked.
It's what is it? A Brave New World reference? No, I don't know.
Brave New World, exactly. But
Oh
what's
God!
interesting is
Why did
that
I just make that joke? I really retract that joke. Anyway, go on.
mistakes were made. Mistakes were
Yes.
made.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is in the comics, again, 'cause I feel like I'm referencing the comics a lot, is this is actually the day Tails was born. Tails was actually born on the
Oh,
eve
I
of the
didn't know that.
coup,
Okay.
like in Archie. But obviously, he's I think because they're they never really explicitly say how old Sonic and Sally are in SatAM. I usually just kind of go with the classic. Oh, they're probably like early teens or mid-teens at least. So 15 because that's usually the kind of the generic Sonic age. But yeah. So like you figure, and Tails is younger, so it feels like Tails, at least inside AM, was born after the coup. Whereas, like in Archie, he's a bit older, so he was born on the eve of the coup. So he's about 10 years old in the main parts of the series. But then, obviously, the Archie book goes on, and Sonic has 2 birthdays. So by the time of the reboot, Tails is like 12, 13. He's almost a teenager.
Yeah. Yes. So continuing on.
Also, I
There's
also
more.
want to say there's more. It was kind of implied, and this is actually kind of one of the decent things I thought Penders had a good idea about, was that like apparently he wanted to set Uncle Chuck up with Rosie, and I'm like, you know what? Sonic's got to get his suaveness from someone. Let Uncle Chuck have the Riz. Let him be the ladies' man. Yeah, breaking all those old ladies' hearts.
He's got that handlebar mustache,
He
winning
does.
all that
He does.
hearts. I probably, you know what? That's probably where Robotnik stole it from. They stole. He's like, I can grow a better mustache than him. They had mustache wars. So
Probably.
no, I guess in terms of lore of the SatAM, I know. Sonic is a character created from Japan. I get it. You don't need to remind me. Those of our listeners who are out there and like, I gotta write a comment. I gotta remind them. I gotta tell them.
The SOJ faithful.
Yes. So yes. Sonic is restless, and while the young Sonic bombards them with questions, a knock on the door. Rosie arrives with young Rotor, Bunny, and Antoine. Charles warns her that if anything unusual happens tonight, that she must take the children through the secret tunnels to Knothole. Do you think Knothole was empty or functional before they got there, or do you think it was just there like empty, like abandoned?
Well, it's interesting you say that because again, I'm going to God, I feel like everything is an Archie reference in this episode. Basically what they had established in Archie was that Knothole was already kind of a thing because like Sally and Sonic and Rotor and Antoine, because again they're all roughly the same age, they were all born in the early to the late days of the Great War, so they were about 5 when it ended. So apparently because the Overlanders had captured Mobotropolis during the war at one point. Knothole was, they spent even their earliest days in Knothole. Knothole was kind of the evacuation spot of the Kingdom of Acorn in Archie. So I'm kind of just gonna go out on a limb, and it's kind of the same, for the most part, something similar in SatAM, and that it was kind of maybe someplace they could, in case of an emergency, retreat to.
Okay.
Especially if, again, and as they say, they're coming off the Great War, so you know, very much could have been the case.
Okay. So, meanwhile, in the War Ministry, SWAT bots prepare Julian's destroyer for launch. Julian orders. I'm going to call him Julian until he reveals his new name. He orders Snively to complete engine tests within the hour. But Snively reminds him...
Snively has hair.
Yes, and Snively has hair in this scene. Snively reminds him that the peace bots still need their laser upgrades and that their takeover of the city is imminent. Turning cold, Julian sneers at Snively, saying Mobotropolis will belong to him alone. With a few keystrokes, he overrides the system, ensuring all technology will only obey his voice. He then grabs Snively by the collar, eyes burning with menace, and he says, "From now on, you will call me Elon. Excuse me, sir." Snively gulps, and his excitement replaced with pure terror.
See what you did there.
Yeah. I mean, he's a bad guy. He's a real bad guy. You don't trust people that change their names,
Ivo.
Yes. My heart goes out to you. That's all I can say. Cut to the safe house. Young Sonic grows restless and sneaks off to the palace, his friends trailing behind. Then cut to the inside of the palace to where Sonic and Sally await an audience to meet up with the king. Sally fidgets nervously, dreading the reunion after so many years. But sensing her unease, Sonic gives her hand a reassuring squeeze. Charles enters and tells them the king is ready to see them. Taking a deep breath, Sally straightens her hair, then grips Sonic's hand as they step toward the throne room. I always remember this scene. I always remember this scene now. Mostly thanks to the internet meme of Sonic can't cry, that kind of stuff. It's one of those those feel moments where you're like, wow, they actually really emoted here. They actually gave us an emotional moment.
And I think what works for this is that this, in many ways, as crazy as this happening is early, it feels like this is really super early in the season. But it's been something for Sally, we've kind of been on this journey with her since episode 1 of she's been trying to find her dad. And in turn, she's finding her dad, even if it's in the past. So this is someone that she hasn't seen for 10 years, even though this is a younger version of him. So it's an emotional moment, and I think they actually knock it out of the park.
Well, yeah, it was kind of surprising because most of the time, shows like this, you'd never see it, right? It's always it's like a carrot and a stick, right? They always dangle in front of you, maybe one day she'll find him, right? Heck, lots of, I don't know, especially today, lots of anime. I kind of hate watching anime because they always have some sort of particularly the one I'm thinking of right now is Spy Family, where it's there's always characters where they have some sort of mission. But no, they got to do the side mission first. They just got to milk out that plot forever. So I'm really happy to see them actually introduce the character they've been talking about. It doesn't feel I don't know.
It's not an Operation Strix, which just feels like it's going to go on forever and ever until the manga loses interest, so they decide to end it all.
Pretty much.
Or finding One Piece.
Yeah, right? What the hell, anime? All right. Anyway, let's continue. So in the gardens, they watch in horror as SWAT bots swarm the city. but before they can react, flying SWAT bots descend and say, "You are now prisoners of Robotnik." Or I think they just say, "You are prisoners of Robotnik," not now.
Something like that.
Sonic, Sally, and then Charles stand before the king, their expressions grave as they reveal Julian's treachery. But the king is unconvinced, accusing the royal war minister of treason is no small matter, but he demands proof. Sally steps
Well, he
forward.
does that before. They say that before the SWAT bots show up.
Yes.
Because they basically, yeah, you said the SWAT bot set up. So yeah, basically they say, hey, he's like, this is a serious crime. What do you have to do? And this is when Sally reveals herself. Like, she says, hi, daddy. She calls him daddy. It's weird. And he's kind of taken back. She's like, this is a really cruel joke. But then, Sally flashes him the royal signet, and he's like, and he asks her, like, what's the secret family, like, code? And she says it. It's really cheesy, to rule with honor. It's like, come on now. That's bad. That's lame. But then we realize it is her. It's like, oh my God, they're telling the truth. And that's when the SWAT bots crash the party.
Oh, actually, no, yeah, you're right. I skipped ahead in my notes a little bit, or I think like I said, because I have to put this show together and put these notes together, like watching the scene and then writing down what it is I see. So sometimes it does get jumbled. So, yes, I did write this down. What's that?
That's when I always make sure I'll pause the episode to write my thoughts down when I'm watching it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It doesn't help that I'm writing this on my phone in the train, so.
Yeah, that would be tricky.
Yeah. Thumbs, yeah. Good old thumbs. Yeah. I want to, backtrack a little bit here. The king's, this is my actual note. The king's breath catches, his eyes narrow in disbelief. Charles takes over, explaining that Sonic and Sally come from the future. The king scoffs at first, but then he looks into Sally's eyes as the camera zooms in her gaze. He rushes over to her, seizing her hand. His eyes widen at the sight of the royal signet on her finger, a ring that we have never seen on her hand until now. And I don't think we ever see it again. I don't think we see it in Archie.
We do see it in Archie.
We do. Okay. All right. Cool.
Yep. It was kind of a part of the Sonic in Your Face.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Special, where basically it was on Julela, who sometimes she was drawn as a cat, but then she was also said to be Rosie's cousin, which would be weird. But then she was also drawn as a chipmunk and said to be the Queen's. Alicia, again, early Archie shenanigans of woodland critters, but
Yep, Shamalama Ding
But yeah,
yeah.
Shamalanga Ding Dong. But the point was that on her passing, she was always trying to teach this trick of how to like catch this nut, and eventually Sally did it after trying. Then she'd been trying to do this with her for years, but like on her deathbed, she finally, Sally finally does it, and it cracks open the walnut to reveal the royal signet. And Sally would eventually, wear it around on she would reveal to her mom that she wore it on a chain around her neck because she didn't want to lose it while on a mission. But yeah.
Okay.
A lot of Archie
lots
lore.
of Archie lore in this episode.
Ted was taking notes when he watched this. He's like, okay, I'm gonna go do this, and this, and this, and
yes. So yeah, with urgency, he asked to recite the royal family's secret creed, as you said earlier, Malzilla, to rule with honor. Because they have to remind us that they're the royalty for some reason. But when Sally finishes, the king doubts shatters. They hug and Sally tears up, and she urgently warns them that Julian is about to betray you. But before she completes this sentence, Sally is interrupted as the throne room trembles with SWAT bots bursting inside, weapons primed. The walls begin to crumble on the outside, and the destroyer fires upon the castle, reducing the ceiling to rubble. Amidst the smoke and chaos, a shadow emerges. Stepping down from the destroyer with eerie confidence, Julian, no. Robotnik grins wickedly. Welcome, he sneers, arms outstretched, to Robotropolis, the capital of my kingdom. End of part 1. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
So I
Let's all
figured,
go to the lobby. Get yourself a drink. Yes.
do we want to talk about well, let's finish this episode.
Yes, we
before
got
give
more.
our
We got
thoughts.
more. So yeah, then part 2 begins with Uncle Chuck tells Sonic to grab Sally and scram. Sonic hesitates, and he's not leaving without them. But when Chuck holds off the SWAT bots with a barrage of he holds them off with like a barrage of like these special tech needles. Kind of a cool little item that we never see. I don't think again. This is the only time we ever see it. Or maybe we see it again, Archie. I'm not sure. Yeah, they head straight to Rosie's safe house, only to find it empty before they can figure out that their next move, the SWAT bots are close in and haul them off to prison, where they come face to face with their younger selves and the future freedom fighters. For some reason, when in the prison cell alone together, Sally explains to Sonic how if young Sonic and young Sally get roboticized, the problem here is like if they get roboticized, they'll be robots too. And for some reason, Sonic looks at the camera when he says this, and I'm like, is this like a Spaceballs moment, or like he's breaking the fourth wall? Like, tell us what's going on in this show. I understand this came out before the internet was a thing, so I understand maybe they needed to like re-explain some of the episode as a recap, but I don't know. I really got a chuckle out of this. So meanwhile, Robotnik fires up the destroyer, spewing pollution that darkens the sky and transforms Mobotropolis into the grimly wasteland of Robotropolis, like in the intro of the show. While Snively... Yes?
I do want to say something, because this is kind of one of those weird things that kind of almost throws... If I had one critique of these episodes, it's this whole transition. It's like, I get it's a technique that they're using, but like it's suddenly like magically it's now Robotropolis instead of it should being, still Mobotropolis, and that he would build the rest over the next 10 years.
It's supposed to be like Silent Hill, how like the whole city just turns evil.
I guess.
Robotnik knows those, the secret to the Silent Hill lore. I don't know. That's my headcanon. That's what my headcanon says. He knows how to turn the city evil suddenly over in like, mere seconds. Let's see. Where was I? Oh, so while Snively is choking on the smog, Robotnik he revels in the smell of his new empire. Do you think Robotnik is like the type of person who loves the smell of gasoline? I cannot stand
I'm
that
sure.
smell. I know some people love that smell, but it's not for me, man.
I'm sure he loves all kinds of industrial goo.
Yeah, that's stuff for the cockles of his heart, right?
Well, he doesn't have a heart, remember?
Oh, yes, that's right. He had a heart in season 1, but anyway, it's gone now. So back in their cell, Sonic and Sally use Nicole to locate the underground tunnels of Robotropolis of the future. Sonic drills through the floor, and they make their escape. But Snively soon reports the 2 missing prisoners, one suspiciously fast blue hedgehog, and, they don't actually mention... they mentioned... Did they mention Sally? At this point, I can't remember.
They mention like he's Snively still has hair, so but they would they just know the blue fast hedgehog because like when they escaped from him in the beginning of the episode, he kind of waves off. It's like, oh, it's probably nothing, and we all know, yeah, you're gonna regret that. Well,
Right. Well, I guess he wouldn't know who Sally is, until much later.
Well, he
would know her, but not know.
He would know her.
Not too acquainted, right?
I do want to mention because there is an exchange later in the episode but we haven't gotten to it that. But I do want to bring it up.
Okay.
So
Put that in a little box
it's
and bring it out for later.
in about 5 minutes because I think that's when we're about to get to it. So continue
Okay.
on.
Yeah. So yeah, Robotnik brushes this off. This suspiciously fast blue hedgehog. Just for now. Sonic and Sally break into the kids' cell, but they're already gone, and they probably headed for they figured that they're probably already headed to the roboticizer. In a desperate move, Sally has Nicole short circuit the machine. Now, I want to point out I like this part because it's like the first like Nicole in English, please. I'm like something that you saw in a lot of '90s movies back in the day. Like what was it like Bruce Willis and like Fifth Element, where he's like always asking for things in English, I believe. But
And they would just give the techno babble.
yes, um, yeah. I mean, what is it? Sonic says this again, I think, in the Void when he uses
Yeah,
Nicole. I
he
mean,
shakes her and she shocks him.
I don't even remember that. Okay, yeah, well, I
We'll
like,
get to that
yeah, we'll get there
on
when we get
another
there.
day.
Yeah, I don't know. I like this because this is the first time we get to see Nicole show some sort of like sentience. Like she's like not just Chat GPT, you know. Or I guess she is kind of still Chat GPT if she can respond that way. But this is more like okay, early Siri. We'll say that she's not early Siri because early Siri was terrible in the very beginning. Uh, I also want to point out I'm surprised that this also wasn't a scene where we see Bunny get partially roboticized.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised because they got her strapped to the table. Now, again, going back to Archie, is Bunny actually didn't really show up until like the second or third issue, where like Rotor and Sonic save her. You know, when she's basically harvesting carrots from some, these SWAT bots. They got like a little van with a mobile roboticizer, and like, oh yeah, let's get her in, and they're like, no, don't.
Huh.
But yeah, it's just kind of one of those things where I thought this was when they were gonna, roboticize her, which then asks the question is, when did she get roboticized in the main story timeline?
And we
All
learn
right,
in Archie, but we never get to learn in SatAM.
exactly.
So, moving on. This buys after they short circuit the roboticizer from above. I think like like a air vent or a hallway. This buys them 2 hours to stop. What is it? Or to go down to the location. I guess Robotnik leaves. It's not really. It's just shown. The time passes that Robotnik leaves the scene, and with all the you know what is it? A little bit of loss of words here. With all the other extra, freedom fighters, the young ones.
The young, the time, the OGs. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because we're getting to the point where we're starting to get really into typical um time travel movie, you know,
Shenanigans, yeah.
shenanigans where it's like, you know, and this movie plays, well, not movie. This show is playing along the classic Back to the Future, as opposed to Endgame, Dragon Ball Z time travel, where you you can't really change the past. You just create like different timelines. Where this is very much the oh yeah, we're going to for all intents better, for all intents terms, it's like we've kind of started changing the timeline, and if we don't do something, we're gonna, for all intents purposes, start really, things could get really screwy because if we don't save the kids, um, we may not exist. So now it's kind of like, okay, we got to do all this other stuff that could, affect the timeline. That classic, space time continuum disruptions, and if we do too much, things go way out of hand.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So moving on. Yeah. So, but however, before they can rescue the rest, the rest of the kids, Sally notices on one of the monitors it shows the destroyer headed towards the Great Forest. Great Forest. Excuse me. Their hideout in the future. I mean, this greatly alarms Sally, prompting her to declare that they must stop this from happening because it didn't happen in their present timeline.
Again, new challenges because if they don't stop it, there will be no knothole for them to live in.
Yes, a very
So,
Back to the Future moment. Uh, what is it? Before they can act, Snively spots Sonic and doesn't recognize him until Sonic taunts him about his future boldness. The wind from Sonic's escape rips Snively's hair out of the spot, leaving him fuming and forcibly, falsely. I think I made a typo here. Challenged.
follically challenged.
Follically challenged. Yes, I can't read my own handwriting or read my own text. Thank you. I think I spelt the word wrong. Yeah, I also want to say, too, this is really weird. I don't know if you noticed this, but what's really interesting about this, after the commercial break, the entire backgrounds from, like, where Sonic and Sally are, they go to, like, the dark, drab Robotropolis backgrounds and, like, the future.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice this?
I did.
Isn't that weird?
That's a little odd choice.
I mean, I like it. Like, again, Silent Hill. It's the evil version, right? So, I don't know. Big Silent Hill fan here. Love the new remake. But I have something to say about how it relates to this show. But we'll save that for the final recap. On their way to the Destroyer, Sonic and Sally rescue Sabina? Is her name? Sabina? Sabina, Dulcy's mother, from a squad of hover units. Meanwhile, Robotnik locks King Acorn in a chamber and orders him banished into the void, where Robotnik informs him that he has to say hi to the sorcerer Nagus, who is already in there waiting.
Foreshadowing of a future episode, and yeah, again, more Archie lore because, the void or the zone of silence, as Archie readers will know, was kind of this extra dimensional limbo that Nagus found and was, experimenting with, and then he had an assistant called Warlord Kodos, who was this big old lion warmonger, who's kind of locked him in there. And then when Botnik showed up, and Kodos hated Overlanders, so being kind of racist to humans and whatnot. But eventually Robotnik would betray him by throwing him in the void. Everyone was gonna, just showing up in the void. It's basically kind of everybody void tonight, basically.
Oh man, I can't tell you. This void thing is so cool. I think that was really cool. It's a cool element that they added.
It was a cool thing, and we're definitely gonna see a lot more of it in the episode, The Void, and it's been in the series a bunch because that's kind of where Ari ended up in Game Guy.
Mm-hmm. Back when Robotnik said he created it, but he didn't. Of
Yeah.
course. Remember, everything he owns is stolen.
He's very much into revisionist history.
Yeah.
As any good tyrant is.
Yep. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the king is sucked into the void, saying Robotnik will regret this. Typical kind of cliche stuff. Next, as Sonic and Sally catch up to the Destroyer, they launch themselves onto the ship with the help of the knothole tree chute, a power ring, and Sonic speed. They overshoot it a bit, but with the help of Sonic's anti-gravity sneakers, they land safely on the deck. When were the anti-gravity sneakers introduced?
In a previous episode. I forgot
really?
Which one, but I do remember them. They kind of... I think it was earlier season 2. Maybe in season 1, but yeah. No, they were a thing. I remember. My God, yeah, I remember these. I just forget which episode.
Huh. Okay. Interesting. All right. I like them. They should bring them back in the next Sonic game. Anyway, meanwhile, Robotnik inspects a captured dragon not Sabina. One
Actually,
that
that is. Oh, that's right. It's not Sabina.
it's
Just a
not.
different one.
It's not. One that took out a squad of SWAT bots before capture. Impressed but annoyed, he orders a custom roboticizer for dragons. Just then, Snively, still mourning the loss of his hair and gets ridiculed, uh, spots intruders on the destroyer. Robotnik switches the monitor, recognizes Sonic, and orders his capture.
Okay, here's an interesting thing.
Okay.
This is what I kind of alluded to about 5 minutes ago.
Okay.
Was that since Snively is now follically challenged, he makes a crack at Snively's new hairdo, and then Snively kind of sees. He says the name Sonic because he heard Sally call Sonic Sonic.
Uh-huh.
And that's when Robotnik kind of picks up. The kind of was like, wait a minute, Sonic, isn't that the name of Sir Charles' nephew? They really don't go much beyond it, but beyond that, but that's kind of the big, oh, kind of like, wait a minute, there's another hedgehog named this that has like, is one of those things where it's like, and again, this is thinking too much into like what they would, what they should really be doing, like, especially if he's basically, hijacked all of, you know, um, Chuck's technology. It's like you think he would know, you know, you think he would know all about all the technology that, or at least in this case, not so much technology, but it's like, oh yeah, Sir Charles has that nephew that is like has that ludicrous speed. That's kind of something maybe I should be like aware of or
Yeah.
factor into my plans of like that could be a problem. But again, it's Robotnik, so he's obviously, you know, he
Yeah.
he doesn't give it two thoughts. He's like, oh yeah, this is just
He's yeah,
this won't be a problem.
he's a character. No, no, no.
But then it'd be interesting thing is because we see that they do kind of they do some change to the past. So you kind of have to wonder, does he remember Sonic and Sally at the day of the coup?
Yeah, that's a good
But they
point.
never, I don't think they really ever talk more about that. So, oh well.
Yeah, you're right. Well, anyway, moving on. Where was I? Oh, so yes. Uh, as Sonic and Sally open a hatch on top of the destroyer. Um, wait, where am I? Oh, okay. Yeah, Sonic and Sally open up a hatch. So they've launched themselves onto the destroyer. SWAT bots are waiting for them because they have a surveillance orb blows their cover. But in the nick of time, Sabina, Dulcy's mom from earlier, arrives, unleashing a gust of wind that sends hover units crashing into the destroyer. The ship goes down, Robotnik rages, and Sonic and Sally fall until Sabina swoops in to save them. Uh, there's like a couple of odd details here I wanted to point out. Like, Sally starts crying for a moment here, which is like I didn't even notice before. And
Yeah, I didn't notice that.
uh I guess yeah, I get it. I mean, she's falling to her doom, so I mean, I guess I would cry too, maybe. Um and also, she doesn't say a thing. This new character. She is
Yeah, it's
no
kind of a Deus Ex dragon.
Yeah, but we don't even well, I was kind of hoping she said something, but it's one of those like we hear from the other dragons, but not her for some reason. Anyway, as Sonic and Sally are on the move by sneaking through the vents, Robotnik reboots the roboticizer, lining all the furry characters up one by one into it. Robotnik then
He
turns.
tests it. He tests it on one dog,
Yes, yes, he
and then
does.
he really just starts shit talking Uncle Chuck, like just being an absolute hater, and it's kind of hilarious
But you like
because
that
he's
scene.
like,
Okay.
well, it's funny. It's just him just being an absolute dick, He's like, kind of flaunting because he acknowledges that, like, oh, this is, this great machine, created by, Sir Charles, the great Charles the Hedgehog, who was knighted by the king for his, scientific brilliance. But now it's mine. Ha 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 ha. Again, he's just being a real typical bad guy. But it was also really funny. And then Sonic shows up and shit goes to fan.
Yeah, yeah. Robotnik then turns to Sir Charles, ordering his roboticization. Young Sonic watches in horror, and I gotta say, this has got to be the darkest moment of this show, where like young Sonic has to watch his own uncle get turned into a robot. That was dark. Like, wow, they went there. I don't know. I don't know what darkest moment it is for you in this show, but like that was like, yeah, that's peak dark
It's
right
heavy.
there.
It's heavy.
Yeah, he gets teary-eyed and everything. So, yeah, so just with seconds to spare, Sonic and Sally race to the chamber. They spot Rosie searching for the kids and then decide to take them with them. I also love, by the way, like how they're like, Sonic, we have like 43 seconds. Wait, we got to stop to talk to Rosie. Like, you don't have like time to talk to her, man. Just pick her up and like run. But I don't know. Supposedly they have time to talk to her. That's less than 43 seconds. So, yeah. So they charge into the room, taking down SWAT bots, and with Sally quickly gathering the children and pulling young Sonic away, who is still frozen in shock after seeing his, roboticized uncle. Robotnik then snatches Sonic and then demands to know who he is. But with a quick spin, Sonic breaks free and disorients Robotnik, causing him to stumble and accidentally roboticizing his own left arm.
He also
Furious.
has a great line where he
Yes.
says, or Sonic basically says, "Oh, you might not know me, but you're gonna hate me." And Robotnik's like, "Oh, I already hate you." It's like, "Oh, good, because you're gonna about to hate me even more." And that's when he goes tornado mode on him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, if Furious, Robotnik orders, yeah. Oh, hold on. I lost my place again. Oh, okay. Yeah, so Furious Robotnik orders Sonic's capture, unaware that he and his friends have already escaped. I don't even remember that Robotnik's arm was roboticized. That's continuity from the first season.
Yeah, well, his arm was robotic. It was, robotic, but they never explained what it was
Okay, so it
until
was. All right.
this.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, in this scene, Sally says, "Sonic, we have to go!" Like right in front of young Sonic. What do you think their
Hmm.
explanation is for that? Sally has to explain to him, like, "No, that's not you. It's Juice. I said his name on accident." Or do you think like young Sonic's too, not smart enough to like know the difference
Well,
between time,
it's
wime, wibbly wobbly, woobly woobly,
timely, wimely, wibbly, wobbly.
schmoogity
It is
boogity.
kind of schmiggity boogity. It is an interesting thing because you figure it's gonna get to the point where, like, when they return back to the present, like, if they do, it's one of those things where it's like you figure, like, maybe Sonic and Sally are either they're gonna forget this whole thing happened because they were just so young, or they're gonna like file it away of like, oh, it's kind of one of those. It's one of those weird time loop things where like it almost feels like a lot of this is like an actual time loop that they just never really felt like explaining.
Okay, huh? All right. Uh, so yeah. What is it? After this, young Sonic and older Sonic paved the way with their speed to get Rosie, Sally, and the other young freedom fighters a safe passage to the meeting hut from before. When young Sonic arrives at the hut first, Sonic is briefly shocked, but lightens up when Sally reminds him that he technically lost to himself. Uh, Rosie,
Like,
that
he beat me. No, Sonic, you beat yourself. Oh, okay. It's like I'm fine with
you think
it.
Sally enjoyed telling Sonic, "Did you like beating yourself?" Sorry, I
She
had to say, I
probably
had to
did.
throw that in. I had to throw it in. You know.
That's fair.
Chevelle, I
That's
hope you're
fair.
listening, and I hope you laughed at least. I hope you enjoyed that one. So, what is it? Rosie then reveals that their escape route is blocked by overturned furniture, and Sonic makes quick work of it, spinning like a Tasmanian devil, like tornado to clear the way. Impressed, young Sonic vows to master that move. Is this a Sonic Frontiers move? If not, it should be.
It might have been.
Okay, he has a lot of cool moves that I really feel like they're underused for that game, but like they could have used them like as part of the game, but I'm getting ahead of myself. As Rosie prepares to lead the children through the tunnel, she reveals to Sally that she knows her true identity as the princess. Sally urges Rosie to never leave Knothole, and with a promise, Rosie disappears into the passage. Let me ask you: do you think Ben Hurst wrote this with the Underground Railway in mind, or Nazi Germany in mind, or both?
Maybe, I don't know. I think that's getting a little oddly specific.
Okay,
But
because I mean,
you know,
this underground passage thing really made me think about that.
I think more than anything, it's just like it feels like a panic room, and like obviously of all these, they don't actually explicitly say where they're hanging out, but the fact that Chuck knows about it and Rosie knows about it, and given their like status as given their status as like, because again, if you think at it from the perspective that Chuck is, he's knighted. He's obviously on good terms with the king. He's on good terms, for lack of a better term, calling him Max. But yeah, it's like, this could be a private royal little cabin that, they would know about, or maybe not. I really don't know, but it feels like a typical like escape hatch.
All right, that's
Maybe you
fair.
could pull a little. Yeah,
That's fair. Yeah. So, before Sonic can even question Sally's decision, Robotnik and his army surround the hut. But with no time left, Sally pulls out the time stones, and she and Sonic vanish into the future, just as Robotnik storms inside, only to find an empty hut. Furious, he bellows in frustration.
so
Yes?
question for you,
Okay.
and again, this is I think a classic case if we're thinking too hard.
Okay.
But if you think about like, doesn't it feel a little weird that like he's like, oh, where were they? They were just here, blah blah blah, and then suddenly it's like, oh, they're gone. Like that must have been a really, really clever disguised, passageway. Because I feel like if any of his robots had sensors, they'd probably say, "Hey, we're picking up some, a hollow wall here."
All right. Well, to defend the show, I will say that probably, to apologize for the show, because this is all Chuck's, tech. All of
Yeah,
this
maybe
tech is stolen, so maybe he doesn't know how to use it yet. So,
fair.
yeah, cut back to present day Knothole. Sonic complains that their journey was a failure and a travesty. He doesn't use those words, but that's essentially how he feels. Since Robotnik still rules, Sally reminds him that they retrieved the original roboticizer plans, but Sonic isn't satisfied until Sally reassures him that they'll keep fighting until Robotnik is defeated. Just then, Tails arrives with a message that Rosie is looking for them. Confused, Sonic asks how Rosie can be here, but Tails insists that she's always been here. As Sonic struggles to process this, Sally playfully tells him that she'll explain it all in the future. Waka waka. End of episode. So,
How's that for
Malzilla.
denouement?
Yeah. How's that for denouement? Good. I like it. So, letter grade. Malzilla, thoughts. Episode as a whole. wrap up for
Wrap up these
these
two.
two. Yes, they're
We've
heavy.
had a they are thick, they are deep, they are hefty. These are some of my favorite episodes. This is a solid A. It's up there with Sonic and Sally with me. I think I like them a little bit more because there is so much lore. If you wanted to, yes, you could probably pick these apart relatively easily because it's just if you start thinking too hard, and that's something that's really hard for a guy in his mid 30s watching a rewatching a cartoon from his youth when things weren't really written that deep. But
Yeah,
this is great. I mean, on one hand, I can understand. Again, these are written by Ben Hurst, and it's pretty easy to know that at this point, if Ben Hurst writes an episode, it's probably going to be Sonic and Sally focused. So I get some people being upset, but because of the lack of um and like Antoine had a couple lines as a kid, but again, some of this other stuff is just I feel it's like, okay, we got all this stuff going on, but at the same time, it's like I'm loving all the Sonic and Sally stuff. They are, this is their show, and you either kind of accept it or you don't. But they play off each other so well. Dulcy had some great stuff in the beginning. Tim Curry is just a phenomenal actor. Again, he's up there in one of those actors who's just he's been in so much stuff, either live action, on the stage, voice acting. Again, I kind of made a joke that he was the voice of Kilo Khan in Superhuman Samurai Cyber Squad, which came out probably around the same time as the season, as that was a English adaptation of Gridman, the Hyper Agent, coming in off the big Power Rangers boom of '93, where they started making all those VR Troopers, Big Bad Beetleborgs,
I
and
remember that show.
Most Riders.
Yeah,
They spin that off of one of the Common Rider seasons. Everyone was just trying to Power Rangers was such a lightning in the bottle thing, and they're like, okay, well, let's see if we can get our make money off our version of it. But yeah, it is what it is. Again, I enjoyed it a lot. I feel like I'm going in circles. It is kind of fun when you look about it, like, especially if you've read all the Archie, just how much Archie would take a lot of these concepts and run with them. And, to Ken's credit, back in the early days when Archie Sonic was still kind of in its, Doctor Slump, early Dragon Ball, comedic days, and he kind of wanted to say, hey, we should try to match the tone of the show because, the show, whether you like it or not, he I think saw a lot of potential in the in the franchise.
yeah, yeah. No, no. I guess yeah. My letter grade, if you're done with your what is
Yeah.
it analysis? Yeah, mine would be not A plus, but definitely A. I mean, I don't know. I guess A plus doesn't exist. I mean, I guess in terms of letter scoring, but from in my world, it exists. Yeah, A plus means it's
Yeah.
flawless. There's no mistakes. I mean, but yeah, of course, there's some nitpicks I had here and there, as you heard in this episode.
Mhm.
But yeah, this is really quintessential SatAM. It's like you watch Sonic and Sally, and then you watch this one or these two, in tandem, right? So yeah, this is like as the peak episodes. Like if you're going to watch a few, this is one of them. So now that we've talked about peak Sonic stuff, I guess we got to
We've
talk
talked
about.
about the good. Let's talk
Uh,
about the bad. Like, I did say season 2 was a lot like Archie, where the peaks were peak, but the lows were low. And I don't know whose idea was to do instead of a traditional 1 20-minute episode, 22, 24-minute episode, to do kind of a couple episodes that were like 2 12-minute episodes to put together. But that was a mistake, and we're going to talk about that because the first one is called Fed Up with
Oh,
Antoine.
really? I
And
thought
I
it was
think
called dog shit. No, I'm joking.
I mean, semantics?
I'm joking. I'm joking. Sorry. That's a joke. It's a joke. Yes, no, you're right. It's called Fed Up with Antoine and Ghost Busted. I hope somebody busted out, after watching all these ghosts. Because I didn't.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Yeah.
So let's
Busted
speed
makes
through
me
these
feel
because
good.
these are. Let's speed through these because they're pretty quick.
Yes. No, my analyses are pretty short. You'll see. So yeah, this is directed by Ron Myrick again, and the first one, Fed Up with Antoine, is written by Len Jansen, and the other one's written by Pat Ali. Not Ben Hurst, mind you. Usually they write together, but not this time. All right, Fed Up. Our episode begins with Antoine sneaking into Robotropolis to retrieve a secret message from Uncle Chuck. But his signature clumsiness lands him into trouble. A gust of wind, a misthrown rock, and an unlucky run-in with a SWAT bot nearly get him captured, until Sonic swoops in for the save. Annoyed by Antoine's overconfidence, Sonic challenges him to find his own way home, leaving the poor coyote. He's a coyote, right? What animal is
coyote?
He? Okay. Yeah, I wrote down coyote for some reason. I'm like, wait. Anyway, sorry. Just as Antoine starts to panic, Sonic pops back up, messing with him as usual. Now, yeah, he jumps up and he jumps into like Sonic's arms, and then Antoine
kissing him.
Yeah, he goes very gay for Sonic, and he praises his return with like lots of kisses. Yeah, that's what I say too. No, I'm French, and before you know it, you're Pepe Le Pew. You're canceled. Anyway, so back in Knothole. What?
I was gonna say we could never cancel Jeffrey though. Jeffrey St. John jokes.
I think you can. I think you can. This day and age. So back in Knothole, Bunny is training Tails in martial arts because she's in MMA for some reason. I don't know when Bunny learned Kung Fu, but this is the episode we learned.
Where's that story? Where's that episode
right?
where Bunny?
Right? Where's that story? Why do we? All right, let's get this over with. So Antoine arrives demanding a single lesson. Seeing his utter lack of coordination, but he knows that he's going to need more than that. So during the training, Antoine destroys pottery. He crashes into trees and flails wildly, somehow missing the crude Robotnik training dummy that they made, to beat up. When he finally lands a kick, it accidentally launches the dummy straight into Sonic's hut. Sonic, now covered in dust, is not amused. Antoine, on the other hand, proudly declares himself a martial arts master.
King Fu, as he calls it?
Yeah. So embarrassed and frustrated, Antoine wanders into the Great Forest, muttering about how he should be getting more respect. When he stumbles upon a gang of biker punks called the Nasty Hyenas. They corner him, and they call him what I think was a waiter? But
yeah,
no.
They call him a waiter.
No, I checked the transcript, like, on the Sonic Wiki. Guess what it calls him?
What?
Sonic Wiki said they call him a wiener.
No, I think that... I heard waiter.
Look at this wiener. Yeah. Is that what you say? Like, when you see, like, some doofus looking guy on the street, you say, look at this wiener. Anyway.
No, that's usually not what you call an idiot.
Yeah, no, that's a little weird. I heard waiter, but I don't know. Sonic.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. Like, okay, for our listeners, when I was trying to like put the ending, like little soundbite at the end, we had the hardest time trying to find glow and go time. And like, I checked the transcript on the same Sonic Wiki. I'm like, how did they figure out what it is they said? Because like, it sounds like this is like a misheard what is it? Misheard dialogue? There's tons of this. But anyway, I digress. Let's get this over with. They get their bikes and oh no, I'm sorry. The nasty hyenas, they get off their bikes and this causes Antoine to panic. He then does a super jump somehow and he breaks a tree branch with his head, lands on one of their motorcycles and then rides this motorcycle into their other parked motorcycles. Now, mind you, all the while he says this in broken misheard English and what he says is I'm the master of King Fu. And somehow the hyenas mistake this ridiculous statement and, movements for legendary combat skills, and immediately declare him their king. Antoine, basking in the attention, fully embraces his royal status, ordering foot rubs, anchovy pizza, and tea before drifting off to sleep. Meanwhile, the freedom fighters search for their missing teammate. Sonic and the gang find him, but Antoine refuses to return due to their lack of respect for him. So Sally pulls up info on the nasty hyenas. She makes a terrifying discovery. They have a habit of eating their kings, with an average of 4.3 kings per month. Nicole's words, not mine. Realizing Antoine is next on the menu, the team rushes to save him. First off, I want to say, the one comment I have is, there are that many kings in Mobius?
Well, I think it's code that that's that's their next meal.
Okay.
I do know it's funny, and this is again kind of a funny thing, is that one of them is clearly voiced by Jim Cummings, just using a more sinister version of his Monterey Jack Aussie accent from Rescue Rangers.
Oh yeah, yes. That's definitely him.
Or Dingo from Gargoyles, but that was kind of before. Well, actually, this would be before Gargoyles, so this happened first.
Does Ian use the nasty hyenas in Archie?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah, not like you want to use these characters, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe this could be the lore of where, Rough and Tumble came from. If you told me that they were the nasty hyenas, I'd be okay with that. I would.
They're skunks.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, that's true. They are skunks. Maybe they're like, yeah. I guess it doesn't check out. Damn. Anyway, not like I really care about these characters. By the time they arrive, Antoine is literally sitting in a boiling cauldron while the hyenas season the water. Unworried, he tries to stall by demanding paprika, but when they admit that they don't have any, he realizes he's out of luck. Just as things heat up, Sonic speeds in, flipping the cauldron and scattering the hyenas. Dulcy and the others swoop in. Oh, she crashes again. Did you take a shot?
Take a shot.
Yeah.
Only 2 shots so far.
Yep, not that many this time. Helping take down the gang. So in what I can only describe as a shocking turn of events, Antoine actually lands a flying double kick on one of the hyenas, completing his arc, knocking them flat. Or not, I think, was it 1 or 2? I forgot how many it was. But even Sonic has to give him credit. You have to give him credit for this. So, back in Knothole, Antoine brags about his heroic skills, insisting his final move could be even better with a repeat performance. He promptly trips, slamming into Dulcy, and causes absolute chaos. As the hut collapses around him, Sonic sighs off-screen that we should have let them eat him. End of part 1.
They should have. They should have. It would have been a just.
All right, letter grade.
I mean, do we have to? I mean, I think the only memorable thing was I have 2 thoughts.
Letter grade. Do we have to?
The lowest D- possible. I the only value I have of this is evil Monterey Jack. And the fact that it was kind of funny where it's he's like, you fools, you pheasants, because through the accent. And he's like, except for you, my princess, ma. And she's like, dear God, I hate you. Sally can be especially savage to Antoine. You know, and there are times like she's like, we gotta save him, blah blah blah. But then there's times where she's like, you know, I'm done with your bullshit. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
stop it.
Maybe that's the only
Stop.
fun thing you can get from this episode. Yes.
Um,
It takes
I
away
don't know.
my minus from my F minus, so it's just an F.
Um, it was kind of funny. I like seeing Sonic like legitimately pissed at Antoine when he was training was kind of hilarious. Seeing Bunny train Tails, that's a cool concept. Why couldn't we see more of that? Also, you know, kind of one of those weird things because if you think about it, that looking back on Archie, one of the things, you know, people really loved was the Antoine Bunny dynamic. And we got to like this was like one of the first time we saw since the pilot the two of them actually have a scene together, and really nothing came out of it. It's just like
No.
other than just her annoyance of like this is gonna take some work.
Yeah. No, it's as I said, yeah, it's just an F. This is just awful. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure what Len Jansen was thinking because he's the showrunner of this show. I guess he just loves Antoine for some reason, or this is the story he's been dying to tell. I'm not sure what was going through his mind when he wrote this. I don't know if it was like a mandate or something from the studios saying you need to make a two-parter, or they ran out of content, or this was like a story he's wanted to write, but all he had, it was like a Pender situation where all he had was a Sonic show to write. I mean, this could be said for the second episode too, or excuse
Well,
me,
you know,
the
it's
second part.
interesting. It's actually interesting is because in, you know, obviously not the second half of this episode, but in a later two-parter episode where, you know, it's this infamous Sonic and Antoine crash in the same, you know, Sonic crashes in Antoine's, you know, hut because Dulcy crashed into his. That
Mm-hmm.
was written by Len Jansen as well. So I can't wonder if like, Len, what's your fascination with Antoine? Why you got to do us like this?
Maybe he was just good friends with Rob Paulson. He goes, you know what? You would be
I
really
mean,
good as a Frenchman who just fumbles and makes mistakes all the time. Wouldn't you just love doing that voice?
well, here's the thing is, it's like Rob Paulson having him around is always a good thing. He's again,
Yeah,
uh,
he's got a great
you
voice.
know, he's got a great voice. Again, you look at the names of this voice acting cast. You know, obviously, you know, Rob Paulson, Kath Soucie, Charlie Adler,
Jim
Cree Summer,
Cummings,
Jim Cummings, Christy
Jaleel White.
Kavanaugh, Jaleel. Like you have such a great class. It's good to use them. Sadly, you know, a lot of Antoine's, you know, dialogue in this season is not conducive to quality storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about part two and get that one over with
Yeah,
because I have
yeah.
some thoughts on that one too.
Well, at least we never got to hear. At least Antoine's never did the whole like ho 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 French stuff. You know, he didn't do that. I mean, he did say
uh,
sacre bleu and all the other things. I mean, well, okay, he never drank wine. He didn't wear a striped shirt, and he never premiered as a mime. So, luckily, we didn't go, too far up the own, multimedia's ass. So, anyway, let's talk about an episode that makes us feel good about busting. Actually, no. The opposite of feeling good about busting. Ghost busted. So let's begin. Sonic takes Tails into the Great Forest for a freedom fighter training session, I think.
which again, not a bad concept for an episode because we're starting to see Tails get used more. He's more than just the kid now. They're training him to be a freedom fighter. There is character progression. Except this story is like again, why the fuck did they have to bring Antoine into this one?
They need that
Maybe that's
comic
spoiling it.
relief. I don't know. Maybe because
You could
they didn't have they didn't write Dulcy at the time. I'm not when they wrote
well,
this. I'm not sure.
well, here's the thing is like this is airing the same time as Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, where you know you had pure comic shenanigans of these two guys. You know, writing Sonic and Tails should be easy as hell.
I don't know, man. I don't get it
I
either.
don't know. No,
I guess I didn't really like the way this thing's set up because like to me this is like I was watching this and thinking, wait, is this a Sonic Says PSA from Adventures of? Like Tails, if you're gonna travel and figure out how to live in the forest, this is what you got to do. That's no good. I don't know why I make Jaleel White sound like Ryan Drummond. Anyway, so teaching him how to, Sonic teaches him how to track clues like broken branches, flattened grass, and footprints. When Tails finds a broken branch, Sonic praises him and then challenges him to think beyond just sight. Using his nose, Tails picks up Antoine's Ode de Manly Cologne. This is what I read in the transcript in the wiki because I couldn't hear what he was saying. Just as a loud scream echoes through the trees, Sonic and Tails rush toward the sound and find Antoine rolling uncontrollably down a slope before landing into a mud pool. Dazed and unharmed, Antoine dramatically mourns his tragic fate. Sonic, unimpressed, reminds Antoine that he was supposed to be hiding so Tails could track him. But Antoine, wide-eyed, insists that he saw a ghost and even tried to fight it before it mysteriously vanished. Tails, now spooked, asks Sonic if ghosts are real. Sonic assures him that they aren't, but Antoine stubbornly insists on his haunting encounter. And as he dramatically reenacts his battle with the ghost, he slips, rolls down the hill, and lands in the mud. Again. Yeah. Sonic sighs, mystery solved. So, don't you just love this Antoine character? Man, just, makes you want to buy action figures. And, oh, dude.
Yeah.
So, that night, the trio just sets up camp with a warm bonfire. To entertain Tails, Sonic tells the legend of the Headless Gopher. I don't know how you came up with that one, Lee. But a thief that stole a sorcerer's medallion and lost his head in return. Excuse me, I should say the not Sleepy Hollow. Now the ghost roams the wood in search of it. Antoine, terrified, jumps up in fear, prompting Sonic and Tails to burst out in laughter. Excuse me. Desperate to save face, Antoine brushes it off and pretends he wasn't scared. Then dramatically settles into his very elaborate bed with his sleeping mask. At Tails' request, Sonic launches into another spooky tale, while Antoine, trembling, hides under his blankets. Where is this story from? It's so left field. So, later that night, Tails drifts into a dream where the evil duck, another ghost from Sonic stories, emerges from the moon to devour a bat. And suddenly, a headless rider appears on a distant hill, clutching a glowing medallion. This is a Sonic show. Boy.
Now here's the funny thing is like
Please chime in.
Ghosts have been a part of Sonic, Sandopolis, King Boom Boo, like again, it's one of those things where, like, this is something the franchise has delved in with before, but this is just so bad. And like the idea of like Sonic and Tails going off to do training, that's a fun enough concept in and of itself. Like, and see, this is where like the Antoine thing was just, oh yeah, let's just make fun of Antoine for 12 minutes and have a kind of thing where he almost gets eaten, haha, moving on. This is like, like this one's disappointing because it's like you have a decent concept you could roll with. Again, you haven't really had much Sonic and Tails one-on-one focus since the pilot. Now maybe they decided against it because obviously this is airing at the same time as Adventure of, so maybe they figure like, oh, Sonic and Tails are getting so much in Adventure of.
That's actually a good point. I didn't think about that. Okay.
I mean, that's pure speculation on my part, but but it's an idea.
Huh. Yeah. Well, Let's continue.
Let's
Yes,
finish this
Tails
one up.
wakes with the start, only to see a strange, glowing figure moving through the trees. He cries out, waking Sonic. But when Sonic looks, the figure is gone. Tails swears it wasn't a dream until they realize Antoine is missing. Hooray! End of episode. No, okay. No, it's not done. Um, I wish it was the end. Sonic and Tails track Antoine through the forest, following broken branches and footprints. Just as Sonic praises Tails' tracking skills, a ghostly figure suddenly appears. And yeah, if you guys are like, you have epilepsy, don't watch this episode.
Yeah, and
That
this one's got a little bit of a. They should have thrown an epileptic warning on it. Maybe that's why they didn't really
well,
show
this
it
this
often.
predates the Polygore. What's that character's name?
The poly,
Pokemon
is it
Polymore.
Polygon? Polygon?
Polygon, yes, the Polygon episode. So yeah, so Sonic tells
Porygon.
Tails. Porygon, thank you. I don't know. I stopped doing Pokemon after they added more than 150. Like, I'm not doing that.
He's part of the original 150.
Yes, he is. Yeah. So Sonic tells Tails to stay at the camp while he investigates. But Tails, spooked and unsure, flies into the woods. Exhausted, he tumbles into some bushes and remembers Sonic advice. Stay calm in the face of danger. Regaining composure, he climbs a cliff and spots the glowing figure below. Assuming the ghost captured Sonic, Tails takes off in the other direction, only to stumble and land in front of a dark cave. As he listens and sniffs the air, glowing eyes appears in the cave's depths. Panics, Tails bolts outside where an ominous owl startles back at him. Bats swarm, forcing him out again, and just then he hears Sonic calling his name. Trusting his instincts, Tails tracks the voice by scent and sound. When Sonic finally appears, he's with the glowing ghost. Tails assumes Sonic has been brainwashed and flees, only to trip and then tumble down another hill. Lots of tumbling in this episode.
Every day we're tumbling.
Yeah. So dazed, Tails glances up at the moon, where the evil duck's face appears again. They love this fucking evil duck, man. Before he can even react, the ghost looms over him. Terrified, he crawls backwards until he hears the ghost talk. Realization dawns. It's Antoine! Who else? Who could have possibly been?
Who could it be now?
The glowing effect? Oh, what was that? Oh, why? It was a layer of foxfire fungus. Remember that?
No, they didn't mention that at all.
No.
That's what's the funny thing is. It's like if they had like mentioned that in like the first part, it's like, oh. Again, just this is episode so disappointing on so many things because like after that they just say screw it. They just pack up and go home.
Yeah. Yeah, so foxfire fungus. The next Mega Muck? That's what my note says. Anyway, by morning, Tails confidently helps Daz out the campfire, proud of what he's learned. And while he declares that camping is cool, Antoine, still disgruntled, kicks his backpack. Tails then asks Sonic for more ghost stories, which Antoine not so secretly dreads. Sonic hesitates, considering last night's chaos, but Tails insists that he knows ghosts aren't real now. Just then, Antoine stumbles, prompting Sonic to help him up, only for Tails to discover something under his sleeping bag, a golden medallion. Before they can react, eerie laughter echoes through the forest. Eyes wide, Sonic grabs Tails and Antoine and they speed away. End of part 2, end of episode. So, letter grade. Thoughts?
B minus.
B minus?
Like, I said D minus.
D minus, okay. Put some D's on it. All right.
Double D's. Like I said,
not that good.
Not that good. Where like the first part with the Antoine stuff, that was just kind of like, okay, whatever, haha. I had a couple chuckles, but they weren't like, I'm not proud of them. This one, in theory, it's better than the first one, but it's also more disappointing because it could have been decent. Like the whole idea with the foxfire fungus, it's like that just comes up of nowhere. Like you could have put that in like the first 2 minutes and say, "Oh yeah, we talked about that." Because like clearly Sonic and Tails are having a bonding moment. Sonic's bequeathing, he's teaching Tails his tricks of the trade, how to use the force to their advantage, blah blah blah. And again, and we saw like in the first part, Bunny's teaching him how to fight. He's Tails has grown up. He's learning from the other freedom fighters. Again, that's all good. Everything else is just dumb. Like again, the headless freaking gopher, the headless highwayman gopher, the evil duck. I mean, it's just like whatever, man. Like I almost wish, and this is gonna sound really weird, is if they had just turned that episode instead of making it 12, if that had just been a full 24-minute episode, it could have been better. It probably would have been a lot better.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, the writers.
You could have combined the two. Like, maybe they're out camping in the forest, and that's when they stumble upon the hungry hyenas.
You can't polish a turd that much more.
No, yeah. I guess. Yeah. Let's move on.
Yeah. I guess I'll give my thoughts. Yeah, same letter grade as the other one, F, of course. But I don't know. Obviously, Archie really liked this story because they reused it in one of their like Sonic Super specials. I don't know why, but they did.
Which one?
I forgot which one it was, but they did reuse the story, and they
of the headless whatchamacallit?
Yeah, they did. The gopher thing. It's in there.
I don't remember that.
I'll show it to you. I forgot which one it is, but it's one of the super specials. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if it improves the story or not. I think it's like beat by beat, and maybe even word by word the same. I think. But yes, they do have So I guess somebody liked the story. I guess yeah.
Send it to me because wait a minute.
I must also mention that there's an in memorandum at the end of this episode for someone named Owen Fitzgerald. I guess he worked on some of the storyboards. So I guess I shouldn't give this episode an F. I'll give it a D because, I'm sure he was a great guy. And I'm sure they worked hard on this. I feel kind of bad bashing it too much. But.
Oh my God. Okay. You're right. It was in Supersonic Special 8, which was the how the heck did that show up? They actually did it. Yeah.
Yes.
So that was
did that show up?
So let me pull that up because holy crap. I don't know, like, did they just decide to lift that? Because that episode is mostly known for that's when Dan Slott debuted our dear friend Sally Moon in Sonic the Zone Cop. So that's, what that special is mostly known for. But let me I've pulled up that issue right now. Also has Sonic Super Old. That's so weird. It has a Monkey Kong story too. Holy crap!
Yes, it
That's
does.
Funny.
Yep. This is when everybody gave up on Archie. So.
Oh God, the art for this is so.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it is literally. Oh, this is just.
Is this a many hands? I think it's a many hands.
It very well must be a many hands. It doesn't even say who wrote it. It doesn't even say who wrote it.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know. Think of something fast. We need a short story to fit in here. What works? That one. All right, let's do it. Anyway. Shall we go into Dulcy?
Yes, we've talked about the good, we've talked about the bad.
And now Dulcy.
Let's talk about the Dulcy.
Yes.
Let's talk about the Dulcy.
This was written by Ron Myrick and written by Ben Hurst and Pat Ali this time. So, our episode starts with Uncle Chuck sneaking out of a manhole waiting for Sonic's signal, but from the rooftop, Sonic gives the all clear while Dulcy watches from above. Down in the streets, Chuck breaks into a building, setting off an alarm. Snively sees this on the monitors and wakes up Robotnik, who's not happy about being disturbed, in his nightgown. Really, bizarre. I mean, would you describe this as a cute nightgown?
Oh, Sally's little granny now.
No, no,
Oh,
no, no,
oh
no.
no, not Sa-
Robotnik. Yeah, but Sally gets one too. For some reason, this is the nightgown episode.
Yeah, everyone's in their boudoir outfits. It's just it's funny because like you have Robotnik's like bedroom. He's got the circular bed. He's got like the pictures on the wall, like in the Napoleon pose. He's got this weird little robe with he wears the little nightcap. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So what is it? Yeah, he orders the release of Mega Muck units, sending out a fleet of machines after Sonic. So I guess we've now established that SatAM calls this. Well, he doesn't call it this, but I'm calling it this. This is Sonic's kryptonite. You know, in the games it's water, but in SatAM it's Megamuck, and they're making it more streamlined in this episode. So as the SWAT bots close in, Sonic kicks into high gear, dodging and weaving through the city. He whips up a whirlwind, wrecking the bots in his path, but the next wave is already on him. Just when he thinks he's in the clear, Megamuck units block the road, spewing their sticky trap, stopping Sonic. Robotnik, in his bedtime attire, arrives to see Sonic and the Megamuck. Sonic makes some comment about the way he looks, which is pretty funny. And then this gets Dulcy to swoop in with a blast of ice breath to freeze Robotnik and his bots solid. Sonic breaks free, grabs onto Dulcy, and then the two escape into the night. I was kind of hurrying on some of these notes. What was their mission? Why are they out here? Just collecting intel?
I think pretty much collecting intel. Like they were trying to do some op.
Okay.
But then obviously, they got wind of it, and then, Snively's like, what actually kind of surprised me is like, he woke up, Robotnik, and I thought Robotnik would be like straight up like, I'm going to kill you for interrupting my sleep. But then he's like, oh, it's Sonic. Continue on. Let's go capture him. Like he kind of just ignored Snively. Like, 'cause I'd be pretty pissed if I got woken up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
But he actually shows up to them in his robe. It was hilarious.
Yeah. So back in the Great Forest, Dulcy tries to land, but crash lands hard. Taking her shot. Sinking into the ground. And then, meanwhile, Robotnik, furious, realizes that there may be more dragons out there. He orders Snively to probe a worker bot, Dragon's Mind, for weaknesses, unaware that Uncle Chuck is listening from the vents. Chuck quickly slips away, saying that he's got to warn the others. I actually think this thing is kind of really cool, where he just has like a worker bot, like Dragon Mind. I don't know. I guess I'm wondering if like Ken Penders saw this episode and he's like, oh, I got to make all this weird dragon lore for the Archie series. I don't know.
I don't know. Remember how much he actually did the dragon lore. I think he did talk to them a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Right. So at Knothole, Sonic recounts his daring escape while Rotor patches up Dulcy's bruised knees. Everyone cheers her on, but something is off. Dulcy's been experiencing weird spells where she can't control her wings. She tries to sleep it off, but before she can rest, her wings take over again, sending her spiraling into the sky and out of control. I mean, early in this episode, she said she has to lay off the chocolate, but no, it's this. So while Knothole sleeps, Sally in pink bedtime attire, gets an urgent message from Uncle Chuck, that leaves her shaken. She wakes up Sonic, and then the two rush out to find Dulcy. They don't have to look far because Dulcy is soaring through the moonlit sky, but something is off. She's flying erratically, completely unaware of her surroundings. Sensing something bigger is at play, Sally and Sonic decide to follow her. As Dulcy drifts over the Great Plain, a surveillance orb locks onto her. Snively wastes no time alerting Robotnik, who orders every patrol in the area to capture her. Soon enough, two hover units flank Dulcy, firing ropes that tie up her limbs. But Dulcy is lost in a trance, completely oblivious to the danger. Sonic and Sally spring into action. Sonic races up a tilted tree. launching himself onto a hover unit while Sally climbs onto Dulcy's back. Trying to snap her out of it, Sonic burns through one of the ropes, but before he can cut Dulcy loose, a flying SWAT bot opens fire. One of its shots severs the rope Sonic is hanging from, sending him plummeting towards the ground, but just in time, Sally manages to wake Dulcy, who breaks free and swoops down to catch Sonic. With the hover units still on their tail, Dulcy lets out a deep belch, releasing thick clouds of smoke from her ears. The smoke screen blinds the enemy, allowing the freedom fighters to escape. Back in Knothole, Dulcy tells the others about a strange dream where her mother kept calling her to the dragon's nest. Mind you, her mother doesn't show up at all in this episode. So, curious, Sally consults Nicole, who explains that female dragons instinctively fly there when it's time to lay eggs. And even younger dragons can be drawn to the nest during this cycle. While Sally breaks it down, for Sonic in simpler terms, Snively is giving Robotnik the exact same briefing, only for much more sinister reasons. So, moving on, eavesdropping from the vents, Uncle Chuck hears Robotnik's plans to invade the Dragon's Nest and to wipe out the last traces of the dragon civilization. He immediately sends another warning to Knothole. Meanwhile, Sally uses Nicole to project Dulcy's dream in real time, and in it, young Dulcy struggles to fly under the watchful eye of her mother, Sabina. Mind you, we don't see her in this episode. Again. She remembers that being teased for her smoky ears, but Sabina reassures her that she's special and that she'll understand why one day, as the vision fades, Dulcy suddenly wakes up, knowing it's time. Without hesitation, she heads for the door. Sonic stops her just as the dove enters. Dove delivers Chuck's urgent message, and Robotnik is already on his way to the Dragon's Nest. Under the cover of the night, Robotnik's massive command ship looms over Deep Canyon. Is there a level in Sonic called Deep Canyon?
There's Wild Canyon from Sonic Adventure 2.
What's that level in what was it? Sonic Heroes that's like it's next to impossible to finish, or it's like it's really frustrating. Grand Canyon? No.
Okay, Rail Canyon?
Rail Canyon, that's it. I guess I could always, maybe that's, no, I'm not going to draw comparisons. It's getting late. Let's continue. Upon arrival, he orders Snively to activate the ship's camouflage, rendering it invisible against the rocky terrain. And meanwhile, Sonic and Sally race through the wilderness, searching for Dulcy, but finding no sign of her. To speed up the chase, Sally pulls out a power ring from Sonic's backpack and hands it to him. Supercharged, Sonic dashes toward Deep Canyon with Sally in his arms, closing the distance in record time. By morning, the two arrive in the canyon, but Sonic isn't sure where to go next. Sally points towards the cliffs towering above them, and without hesitation, Sonic grabs her and speeds up the canyon wall. When they reach the summit, they're met with a horrifying sight, Robotnik's command ship hovering in the distance, a captured dragon struggling in its grasp. For a moment, Grip fears them, but relief washes over them as they spot Dulcy arriving at the Dragon's Nest moments later. Now, this is a real bait and switch, I'm going to point out here. They make it seem like it's Dulcy, but the commercial break makes it seem like it hasn't happened yet, but then you realize that it has happened. I don't know.
Yeah.
You caught this, right?
Yeah, it's a little messing with the audience a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm watching you. Show, I'm watching you. Don't do that stuff like, what is the end of Sonic 2, where they're like, we found something, and then like, it's the secret organization that's existed for years, and then they just completely retcon all that. Or not retcon, they hand wave it away. But anyway, if people know what I'm talking about, let me know. The Sonic 2, the Sonic 3 transition. Anyway. So inside the ancient nesting grounds, Dulcy stumbles upon a single dragon egg. Its shell smooth and gleaming. Confused, she wonders what to do with it. When she jokingly mentions frying it, the egg leaps onto her foot, startling her. Realizing the importance of discovery, she clutches the egg protectively, instinctively curling around it. Sonic and Sally arrive just in time to explain that the egg can't be hers because she's still too young. Instead, it must belong to the dragon Robotnik just captured. Dulcy's eyes widen. Another dragon? She's not alone? So let me ask you this. How old is Dulcy? Do you know anything about dragon lore? I mean, outside of Sonic.
It kind of. Different fandoms, different franchises have their different lore. I would say, if anything, and again, this is just me. Like, I think we see Dulcy in the flashback when they're in the past. So, if that's the case, then she's probably as old as the main crew. That would be my guess.
Okay. All right. I want to believe that, like, this is like Star Wars stuff and, like, the dragons can live for a long ass time. They're like Yoda or something. Oh, you're 50 years old. You're so young. Right. Anyway. Yeah, so as she processes this, the egg begins to jump restlessly. Dulcy gently wraps her tail around it, calming it down, and Sonic and Sally insist that they need to leave before Robotnik returns, but Dulcy refuses. The egg still needs her. Meanwhile, in Robotropolis, the captured mother dragon is imprisoned in a reinforced cage, and Robotnik sneers as he interrogates her, demanding to know how many dragons with powers still exist. The mother dragon, defiant, insists that he already has all of them. But Robotnik slams a metal fist against the bars, insisting that she's lying. With a sinister grin, he plays a video recording of Dulcy in battle. The mother dragon gasps, and Robotnik seizes on her reaction, demanding to know how to capture Dulcy. But she refuses to rat her out. Snarling, Robotnik orders her to be sent to the roboticizer. The mother dragon begins to cry. So, back in Deep Canyon, Sonic, Sally, and Dulcy take to the skies, the egg now secretly strapped to Dulcy's back. Sonic grumbles about babysitting the egg, prompting Sally to switch places with him. And when he's in Dulcy's pouch, when Sally watches over the egg... Oh, yeah, so they switch places in the pouch while Sally watches over the egg. I know, important
Why don't
detail.
they just put the egg in the pouch?
And then maybe they would crack it. It would just, make fried egg or raw egg. Anyway. But unknown to them, a surveillance orb is tracking their every move. And on board his invisible command ship, Robotnik spots them on his scanners. Snively barely has time to react before Robotnik commands to deploy a force field nets for their capture. Sonic spots them and alerts Dulcy's eyes dart to the sky. Robotnik's ship is descending fast. With the dragon egg at stake, she tucks her wings and dives into the canyon below. Robotnik's ship, too large to follow, screeches to a halt, and by the time they reroute, Dulcy and the others are gone. Furious, Robotnik slams his fists onto the console, roaring at his SWAT bots to find them again. Back in Knothole, Sonic and Sally brace for Dulcy's crash landing, but everyone's surprised she touches down perfectly. Don't take a shot, because she landed perfectly.
You hit the landing, 10-10.
Yes. 10 out of 10, would meme again. Dulcy credits her newfound grace to carrying the egg in that it would be... Dulcy credits her newfound grace to carrying the egg in that it makes her more careful. She and Sally gently pass the egg to Bunny, instructing her to watch over it. And if it hatches, she'll need to hold the baby dragon down to keep it from flying away. When y'all coming back? Bunny asks. Dulce's expression is serious. When we find the mother. Now alone with the egg, Bunny pats it reassuringly, but this launches the egg straight into the ceiling. From above, Bunny groans. Ooh, this is going to be a long wait. So, next, Robotnik arrives in Deep Canyon under the cover of night, using his command ship's camouflage to stay hidden. Meanwhile, Sonic and Sally search for Dulcy and discover that the Robotnik has captured a dragon. One who happens to be the mother of the unhatched egg, Dulcy has found. Determined to reunite them, the freedom fighters devise a plan to stop Robotnik before he can roboticize her. With Uncle Chuck's intel, Sonic, Sally, and Dulcy launch an ambush, skillfully taking down SWAT bots and hijacking a Mega Muck unit to disrupt Robotnik's convoy. After a high-speed chase through the canyon, Dulcy rescues the Mother Dragon, and the heroes escape just in time. Back in Knothole, the dragon egg finally hatches, revealing a baby dragon with a special role as a protector of its kind. The Mother Dragon, grateful for their help, reassures Dulcy that her own mother would be proud before departing to a safe haven. End of episode. Woo!
Yeah.
That was long. I mean, I didn't really have many notes for this episode. We kind of did our whole...
It wasn't that deep of an episode, but it was
No.
also kind of fun. It's like I made the comparison, we talked about this a little bit earlier, is that it reminded me a little bit of the Sonic Pass, like whatever the Pteropod episode with Little T was in season
right.
1, where it kind of like it's a bit of an adventure. We're not in the same locales. Like a lot of these episodes, either Great Forest, Robotropolis, like the Badlands between the two of them. And that's it. Like this time we got to see some like plain savanna. We got to see like the canyon. So it's like, okay, we're vibing with this. You know, we get a little backstory on, you know, the dragons, which again are raised on Mobius, hanging out with woodland critters. We get to see kind of, you know, their powers. Like, you know, again, you know, Dulcy can breathe fire. She can, you know, blow ice out of her nose. She's got smoke at her. Like, Dulcy's kind of a powerhouse. They kind of established, like, you know, she's got, and you know, she's kind of going through, you know, that, you know, kind of some weird, you know, adolescent dragon puberty, if you will. But you know, no Antoine, you know, you know, Antoine's in it for like a minute and a half. Like Rotor finally does something. He gives her some knee pads, which take that joke with us how you will. But you know, poor Bunny's like, yeah, Bunny, we're gonna bring you back. You're gonna sit on the egg. It's
Yeah,
like,
right.
what? I mean, there's an Easter joke there. I just can't seem to find it. But we got to see Uncle Chuck's little like spy base, which was kind of cool because that's what they were kind of doing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was a nice
that's what
addition.
that was the mission that they were doing, is they were sneaking Chuck into the vent so he could set up his little listening device. So, you know, and you know, again, you know, Chuck's been in. I'd say Chuck has done more in season 2 than Bunny.
No, yeah, well,
Characters that have done more. Oh, we're gonna have some fun when we do our big wrap up of SatAM. We have a guest who wants to join us for that, and I'm gonna write a list of characters who do more than Bunny, and why that's a crime. Chuck's now on the list.
yeah. Well, that's about it. Letter grade.
I give this one a solid B. Like again, I kind of liked it more than I.
Yep.
That's what you said. Yeah, it just kind of you know, you get the weird highlights. You see the characters' jammies. You know, Sally's got her little granny jammies, which is hilarious. You know, she's. I swear, my grandma had the same pair, but it was like blue or purple. But yeah, it was fun. Like again, you know, Mega Muck. You know, we saw like some new, you know, forces from Robotnik and his like Mega Muck cover. And it's like again, you know, it was fun. You know, is it the greatest? No, but you know, it's above average. I mean, it's certainly, you know, I hate to say it, it's probably Academy Award winning compared to the last two. You know, to the two-parter.
Yeah, well,
not
anything's better than those.
Yeah,
Dude.
I mean,
yeah, I don't know. Me, C+, skip it. It's okay. I could live without this thing. If you had to banish it from existence, I'd be fine with it. I mean, I said my piece about Dulcy earlier, and I still stand by that statement. So, I don't know. Yeah. Let me ask you this, Malza. Are you ready to lay this podcast to rest?
Um, Again, some typical housekeeping.
Yes.
Follow us on social media, join our Discord, hang out with us, chat with us, meme with us. We want you to hang out with us. um, I will, kind of give y'all a bit of a preview because we're recording this basically January 31st slash February 1st for Radrey. So you're probably not going to listen to it till probably somewhere between, most likely February 4th to 6th, somewhere in that neck of the woods. But you'll notice that the week after is a certain holiday that is commercially exploited by, you know, by companies to celebrate that wonderful feeling of love. That's right, Valentine's Day is right around the corner. And so our next episode is going to be a special episode where Radrey and myself and Chevelle is going to come back and join us as we dive into the deepest, darkest, ink black part of the Sonic fandom. Yes, we are going to talk about Sonic shipping. We're going to talk about our favorite ships, our least favorite ships, those ships that just kind of make us raise our eyebrow, trying to, crack ships, kind of how to write, relationships in fiction. We're gonna talk about some fun stuff and kind of what works, what doesn't work, how would we make things better, and all that fun jazz. Should be a fun time.
Yeah. So stay tuned for that episode. Uh,
Because I know both Radri and I have a couple of rants on a couple things that are going to be kind of funny.
yeah. Yeah. So until then, I'm Radry, and
I'm Malzilla.
bye.
Well, stone the cows. It's a waiter. worst nightmare, bucko.
Nah, worse than that, mate.
I am prepared to defending myself.
Yeah, right.
I am master of King Fu.
Oh, sorry, King. We didn't know it was you. Yeah, you lost weight.
But not too much. That's good.
Your wish is our command, your worship.
Your worship? You are meaning as in king?
Antoine, where are you? Antoine, where are you? Antoine, where are you? Sonic, I found something. Pete, you! Smells like Antoine's perfume.
We're only here to serve you, almighty king.
Your wish is our command.
You are meaning to say that whatever I am to ask for, you will do?
Uh-huh.
I am liking this too much. Rub my feet.
Oh, yes, your royalness.
Now, you may bring to me a big pizza with extra anchovies.
Oh, yes, esteemed one.
I am too thirsty for some herbal tea.
Okay, doke, sire.
Room temperatures! This is being a little bite of heaven.
There he is. No, Ed, what's up with this?
I am being His Royal Highness.
You mean his royal pain?
Shut up, pheasant, and bow down to me. Moi?
Bow to you? Oh, very funny, Ed.
You dare to be insulating?
Man, they must have blown the royal budget on the old crown, huh, Ed?
Guards! Guards! Please to be tossing these pheasants into the dungeons.
You guys are kidding, right?
Do we look like we're kidding, sport?
No, you look like you're up. Time to win and spin, Ed!
Antoine, what in the heck is going on?
Ed's the new king of whatever. And we're the pheasants.
Ah, oui. You are all nothing but the lowly pheasants. Of course, except for you, my princess, whom shall be my queen.
Thanks, but no thanks, Antoine. And you certainly have no business being a king.
Especially king of these goonballs. Seriously, what rock have they been hiding under?
Well, if this is the way you are feeling, then I have no chance but to be resigning from the freedom fighters.
Resign? Are y'all kidding, Antoine?
Look at me, bunny. Kings do not kidding. I am liking to be king. I was born to be the king. I am the king.
Antoine.
No. My brain is made up.
Antoine.
You're being a real cotton ball, Antoine!
Let's shake it. Ant's history, and who cares?
Oh, come on, Sonic. Antoine has his good points.
Besides his head?
Well, yes, he has good hair.
Yeah, right.
Nicole, give me whatever you have on a gang called Nasty Hyenas. Searching Sally. Nasty Hyenas are a splinter group, once part of a cannibal tribe who always eat their king. They average 4.3 kings per month. Oh my gosh, Antoine!
You know, I am feeling feeling this must be some kind of little funny. Yes?
No, Your Royalness. We're serious about our food.
Still a mite chilly, but the sun'll fix that real quick.
You are making a terrible mistake. No. I am not too good enough to be a king. I am a humble peasant. What are you doing, you fuel? Is that pepper?
Yeah, Your Worship.
Are you stark raving naked? You cannot spice a finest meal like myself with ordinary pepper. You must use paprika.
All that a paprika, your highness.
Then I refuse to be eaten. Whew. I am hoping you are liking it very rare.
Hedgehog coming through.
Dive bomb him, Dulcy!
Yeah! Strike, Dulcy!
Thanks, Mom.
Incoming headache! I said headache. Guess you chumps didn't hear me. Cool move, eh?
They were going to use pepper and not paprika!
Sonic, come on!
Grab on, Ant! Torque time!
No. Be watching close by, Tails, huh? I used my famous moves to save Sonic from those dangerous criminal-type guys. Observe. Yeah!
Why, Antoine, that was actually quite...
Shh! I know. I am realizing that was not so good, huh? One more time.
Easy, Dulcy! Easy!
Much better.
I'll pick up my room later, Mom.
We should have let him eat him. So, big guy, part of being a freedom fighter is learning to track, which means looking for signs. Like broken tree branches, flattened glass, footprints, and stuff like that.
Sonic! Is this a sign?
Precisamundo, big guy. You're getting the old hang of it already. Now, what are the other senses you're supposed to use?
Your nose? Roses, gardenias, petunias. Eau de Manly Cologne. Antoine!
Ah! Antoine!
I am being too young and handsome to die! Sacred blue cheese! I pinch myself if I am still alive! Ow! I am alive, but I am in great hurting.
What happened, Ant? You were supposed to hide so Tails could track you.
Did you not see the ghost?
Ghost? Where?
It was up there. I was going to king foot him, but the coward sneaked away.
Yeah, right. Come on, Tails.
Voila! Hey, waiting up for me!
There's no such thing as ghosts. Huh, Sonic?
You got it, big guy.
Oh, no such thing as ghosts, huh? Well, Mr. Smarty Panty, I am knowing what I am seeing, and I am seeing a ghost. I am getting ready to be attacking, but I...
So that's what happened. So then, the Gopher Highwayman made a mondo mistake. He snagged a gold medallion from a sorcerer and lost his head. From then on, the Highwayman wore the gold medallion and roamed the forest known as the Headless Gopher. Chill, Ant. It's just a story.
Yeah, Antoine.
Of course, I am knowing this is only a story. I was not born tomorrow. I am just making a funny how. Now, I must slit the haze. La, 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 la.
Tell me another story, Sonic. Please.
Sure you're not scared,
Oh,
big
my.
guy?
No way.
Okay, there was this Mondo evil spirit, see? And he decided to become a duck.
Thanks for the scary stories, Sonic. Especially the one about the gopher with the gold medallion and no head.
Welcome, big guy. Sleep tight. Yeah, more training tomorrow.
Oh no! The evil duck. Ah! The headless gopher! Ah! Ah! Ah!
Tails!
Sonic! The headless gopher! Over there!
Say what? Oh, it's just a dream, big guy, that's all.
But Sonic, I saw him! Honest, it was the headless gopher!
Yo, Ant, did you? Oh, no!
Sonic! I found a sign!
Yep, Ant was just here. Good job, big guy.
Son! There's a ghost!
Whoa, man, I gotta check this out. Beat, Tails. Wait for me at the cave.
Ah! A freedom fighter stays calm in the face of danger. Stay calm, Tails. Ghosts aren't real. Whoa! Jelly and jam time! Oh no! He must have got Sonic! Ah! Ah! Oh! Hello? Ah! Huh? Ah!
Tails! Where are you, big guy? Tails! Tails!
Son! What if it's not Sonic? What if it's the headless gopher playing a trick? Better check it out.
Yo, Tails!
Got it! Whew.
Tails! He's gotta be around somewhere.
He must have brainwashed Sonic, and now they're both together. Huh?
Tails! Hang on, man! Ah!
something weird, do ya? No, no, no! 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 No, get away! Get away, get away, get away!
Why should I be getting away from you? It is you who has bumped into moi. Why do you not watch where I am going?
Antoine? But why do you look...
It's cool, Tails. Ant just took a sleepwalk into some foxfire plants. Check it out. See? No ghosts.
Cool.
And make sure you bury all of it, little man. Don't leave anything to burn.
Okay, Sonic. Boy, camping sure is cool.
Ha! I say to that and yet again, ha! Miserable thing, this stupid camping.
Will you tell me some more ghost stories tonight? Please! Please!
I don't know about that, little buddy. Last night was kinda hectic.
Yeah, but now I know there's no such thing as ghosts.
I know, but still. Oh, man.
Merci beaucoup, Sonic.
Yeah, mercy bucket to you too, Ant.
Sonic! There's no such thing as ghosts, right?
Right.
Look, the medallion!
Look out when he storms through. Sonic the Hedgehog. Don't doubt what he can do. Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic, he can really move. Sonic, he's got an attitude. Sonic, he's the fastest thing alive. He's the fastest thing alive. He's the fastest thing alive.
Deep.